morning, everyone. We'd like to welcome you tonight to the business meeting of the Beaverton School Board. We will begin our meeting this evening with the pledge to the flag, led by Manny Norris, Sandra Miller, and Mark McClure, and the Math Counts competitors who are with us.
Our main student is going to lead the pledge. Math Counts.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. First tonight, we have a few recognitions. The first will be read by Donna Tyner for the Math Counts competitors. And then the second one will be read by Susan for our digital equity team. And then Becky will read our third.
Well, before I start, I'd like to welcome the Math Counts group up. But I'd also like to apologize if I do not pronounce the names correctly. So I'm going to give it a good shot, okay? The Stoller Middle School, Cedar Park Middle School, and Meadow Park Middle School Math Counts teams were 3 of the top 6 ranking teams at the Oregon State competition last month. Stoller Middle School ranked first for the 7th year in a row. At the preceding regional competition, 10 of the top 11 ranking students were from the Beaverton School District. Ram Goal, Stoller Middle School, Arushi Mantri, Stoller Middle School, Woo Yoon Kim, Stoller Middle School, Suyash Pandit, Cedar Park Middle School, Naveed Singh, Stoller Middle School, Peter Jin, Stoller Middle School, Sophia Pai, Cedar Park Middle School, Alan Ma, Stoller Middle School, Nafisher Rahman, Stoller Middle School, Zachary Zhang, Middle Park Middle School. Suyash Pandit ranked first at the Oregon State competition and will travel with his coach Manny Norris to Washington, D.C. to compete in the Math Counts national competition in May. Ram Goal, Arush Dimanti, and Peter Jen also placed in the top 10 at the state competition. Sandra Miller coaches the Cedar Park team, and Mark McClure coaches the Meadow Park team. This is Sandra's first year as a Math Counts coach. Manny has been coaching for 29 years, and Mark has been coaching for 10 years. The Math Counts competition program is a national middle school coaching and competitive mathematics program that promotes mathematics achievement through a series of fun and engaging B-style contests. The program exists in all 50 states plus U.S. territories, and the Department of Defense and State Department schools. Congratulations, Math Counts competitors and coaches. So first off, how did I do about pronouncing the names? I do okay? Oh, thank you.
Well, I just want to thank you folks very much for recognizing our students. They work really hard in this level of math. You can follow it on ESPN if you'd like. It will be on ESPN. The competition is in May. But all you have to do is go to the Math Counts website, and you'll see a link on there, and it'll take you to ESPN, where hopefully you'll see our students compete. It follows right after the spelling bee. The spelling bee usually gets more attention, but every now and then we make the news. It might happen this year. So again, thank you very much for taking the time to recognize us.
We embrace equity, COSN, Community Leadership Award for Digital Equity Team. Yeah. There we go. Come on. The Beaverton School District was awarded the Consortium of School Network The School Network Board of Directors 2018 Community Leadership Award for Digital Equity for efforts to close the digital divide. Student access to robust digital tools is key to their success as a 21st century citizens. Yet many students from economically disadvantaged families have limited access to these tools, both at school and at home. Closing the gap will require a broad approach involving schools and communities working together. COSIN created the Community Leadership Award for Digital Equity to encourage and recognize those districts that are working to eliminate inequities and narrow the access gap. When considering all the initiatives that we are undertaking, the main replicable actions revolve around educating community and building alliances, says Matt Highfield, future-ready team and teacher source curriculum developer, and member of the Digital Equity team. Building a grassroots team with representation from around the district specifically to study digital equity issues is important. Congratulations.
I'm just taking the lead from. You have 2 minutes?
Yeah, 2 minutes.
Okay, Mary, our timer.
First off, math counts people. You still here?
No.
Nice, snuck
I'm
out.
putting their ESPN on TiVo. Pretty good. I'd just like to thank our whole team, administrators. Some people didn't come up here. Claire Hertza and Sho Shigioka were pivotal in offering advice and help and support, along with David Williams. And we've done a lot of work. We still have a lot of work to go. It's no secret that the past few weeks have been very difficult for our district with regards to equity issues. And we still have a ways to go, but we've come a long way. And in closing, just like to offer, I like to offer 3 short observations. Observation 1 is equity is no one person's responsibility. It's no one board's responsibility. It's all of our responsibility, every community member, every teacher, every employee. And we all have to take ownership. Second observation is that there's no one magic bullet for racism and inequities in our school. There's no one Starbucks PD that's going to solve everything. We have to be in it for the long run, and I think we are. And finally, for the over 40,000 students that we have in our district, 99% of them will never step foot in this room. 99% of them will never know who any of us are. But what they will know is how they feel when they walk into our schools every day. And regardless of race, religion, sexual orientation, skin color, language, socioeconomics, regardless of all that, every student should feel welcome and accepted and supported. And to the extent that we can do that, that's where we need to go as a district, and that's where we'll find success in the long run. 2 minutes?
Thank you.
We expect excellence. Oregon School Public Relations Association Communicator of the Year, Maureen Wheeler. Maureen Wheeler, District Public Communications Officer, was awarded the Oregon School Public Relations Association, OSPRA, Communicator of the Year Award. For nearly 18 years, Maureen has served as the Public Communications Officer in our district. In this role, she leads district communications, community relations, elections, legislative activities, media relations, volunteer services, and community partnership functions. In the course of her school public relations career, Maureen has led multiple successful bond campaigns and 2 successful local option campaigns, number 3 on the way. Maureen's passion is community service, and this is evident not only in her work, but in the time she invests beyond business hours. She has held leadership roles within the Washington County Public Affairs Forum, OSPRA, the Oregon Community Education Association, the Beaverton Area Chamber of Commerce, Leadership Beaverton, the ARC of Washington County, and Beaverton Rotary. She served as the National Public Relations Association, NSPRA, Northwest Regional Vice President from 2009 to 2012. Maureen is only one of 4 accredited and public relations APR certified school public relations professionals in Oregon, and many OSPRA members look to her as a resource and a mentor, as well as we do. Congratulations, Maureen.
Work every single day, and it is really because my children brought me to education from the private sector many years ago, and this is a fantastic school district. And the last thing I have to say is remember to vote by May 15th.
Is there anyone who'd like to suggest any changes to our agenda tonight? All right. Then next on our agenda is the time for public comment. We welcome your public comment. If you would like to address the board, we ask that you please complete a yellow card and give it to our recording secretary, Candace Hyatt, sitting over there. I have quite a few cards tonight, so I will be limiting people to 2 minutes for each card. Honestly, I have no idea what order you're in. It's just whatever they came to me. So with one exception, we have a group, I think, who's coming students first. So we're giving them first dibs. Typically, board members will not respond today. But rather someone from either the board or staff will get back to you within the week. So with that, I'd like to invite Ruan. Is it still PAE engineers here? Oh, yes. Excellent. Excellent.
Yeah, so I'm with Ruan Jaiwer. I'm with PAE. We are mechanical electrical engineers, consulting engineers. We've done a lot of your schools, including the new Mountainside High School. So it is our 50th anniversary last year, and so we decided for our anniversary to publish a children's book. And so we are donating 33 copies to the school district to go into all of your schools. And this book actually was illustrated by PE employees, engineers, and written by engineers, but we also hired a professional author to write it really well. But the story is about a town that is confronts a hardship, and a bunch of children get together and find they become resourceful and find a way to thrive past that disaster and use natural resources to come together and build their town back. So we hope that this will be a good resource for all the kids that are going to be helping to plan our future.
Thank you. Okay, Sarah, and then it looks like it's a team, Courtney, Daphne, and Alex.
Good evening, Superintendent Grotting and members of the board. My name is Sarah Schmidt, and I'm the president of the Beaverton Education Association. I have a few updates for you this evening. Over the weekend, 37 elected delegates from BEA attended the Oregon Education Association Representative Assembly, along with almost 600 of our closest friends from around the state. We debated and voted on legislative objectives and new business items for our statewide association. You may not be surprised to hear school safety, disrupted learning, and school funding were all hot topics. The most exciting news for us was that Westview High School math teacher Lindsay Ray, who is here today, was elected as the Vice President of OEA's Region 1, which serves the Portland metro area. We're very excited for her to take on that leadership position within OEA. She doubled down and made us extra proud by winning the coveted Ed Elliott Human Rights Award at the OEA Awards Banquet for her work advocating for social justice. Thank you, Lindsay. I also wanted to say that I really appreciate the district's actions to address the recent retweet by the former deputy superintendent. I also appreciate Superintendent Grodding's recognition that trust and faith will need to be restored with students, parents, staff, and members of the Beaverton community. I believe that the most critical part of this renewed commitment to equity in our district will be seeking out and listening carefully to the voices and experiences of our students in our schools. I also have a quick update on our Engage project. Members and leaders in BEA have visited 37 schools so far this year and have had almost 1,400 individual conversations with BEA members. We're learning a lot about our members' core values and priorities as educators. It's been a great way to connect leaders in BEA with their colleagues and to make sure that we're effectively representing our members and their priorities. The last thing I wanted to say was, I don't know if you all have had a chance to take a look, but the TEL survey results have been made public. There is lots of places to dive deeply into that data. I noticed pretty quickly that class size is still a piece of data around our district that is pretty substantial. I noticed in the question that says class sizes are reasonable such that teachers have the time available to meet the needs of all students. 58% of the respondents in our district said no. I believe this underscores the importance of voting before May 15th, but it also speaks to the need for a long-term solution to lowering class sizes and caseloads in our district so that teachers and staff can meet the needs of all of our students. So I recommend taking some time to read those results. They're very interesting. Thank you for the time tonight.
Thanks, Sarah. Courtney and Alex, followed by Edna.
Hi, my name is Courtney Gaffney. I'm here to talk about the health adoption tonight. I am a high school health teacher at Sunset High School. This is my 12th year teaching, which also happens to be, my first year was the first year of our last health adoption. So it's time, we personally feel. I'm a member of the health cadre and the health project team. For me, this process has been so exciting to be part of because I have seen so much passion and everything has been very well thought out throughout this entire adoption. We have put together a curriculum that we are very, very proud of and that we really feel is inclusive to all stakeholders in Beaverton. Every day in my classroom, as well as in extracurricular activities and in the community, I see such a great need for quality, comprehensive health education that not only teaches concepts but skills to the whole child. So just want to thank you for giving this opportunity not only to us as teachers but also to our students as well.
Okay, hello. I'm Alex Bichoux, and this is my 14th year teaching in Beaverton. I've had the privilege of teaching 4th grade through 12th grade here at schools all across Title I. I taught at Merlo Station. I'm currently now teaching middle school health, and I love it. And I think health is really important to me, and I appreciate you looking at this tonight because our kids are not very healthy. They're not as healthy as we wish they could be, mentally and physically. And I think with what's going on in our world, too, it's important that we look at health education as a very important topic. The world's different than it was 12 years ago, and Beaverton's different than it was, and we want to make sure that what we are teaching these kids is exactly what they need. So we really did put forth package we think best fits all of Beaverton students and is inclusive and comprehensive, and we're very excited about it. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Edna and then Karen.
Hi. I'm not doing this whole microphone thing. My problem has never been the strength of my voice. I worked, I'm Susie Nicolai. I'm at Aloha Huber Park. I've been there for 16 years. I work in the bilingual program. And I have, over the years, I've become more and more involved in the OBOB program. It was begun at our school by our librarian, and then we lost our librarian. So a classroom teacher picked it up, and then she moved, and then another one picked it up, and she moved, and so I ended up with it. And I teach second grade, so I kind of have to stretch myself to get up to the third, fourth, and fifth graders. And every year we've had more participation in our building. So a friend of mine said she was going to run it this year. I thought she was out of her mind, so I said I would help her, and it just turned into a conundrum. It was 80 schools in Region 1, about 40% of those are Beaverton School District schools, and we were surprised that the facilities were charging more money. So to make a long story very short, we ended up taking those 80 schools, breaking them into 4 mini regions. I went with the mini region that was able to use a building, Charles F. Tigard, in Tigard for $86. I think I have an information packet. The one thing I did find out about OBOB is that across the district, a lot of people are not aware of what it even is. I collected data from all the 3 to 5 schools of how much money they're spending, how much money we got from OBOB and grant money. It's almost like $15,000 just at the 3-5 level that PTCs are putting into these books that stay in our district. So my recommendation, or what I'm asking, look at me recommending to you guys, is that somewhere along the line that you do, that we can negotiate with facilities so that at least one of the regionals at the high school level, which is only like 7 schools, or the middle school that's like, I think there were 20 schools, so that that Beaverton is participating, because we're like 40% of the participants in our region. I've prepared this wonderful informational packet for you. I will leave it with Candace. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Susie.
I'm going to be 13 seconds over.
And we've got Karen and then John Fox.
Okay. My name is Karen Servin. Some of you know me personally from leading art literacy, volunteering in my son's schools, participating as a levy captain on the last levy, and my activism during the teacher transfers years ago. I value your efforts to make Beaverton schools excellent and your commitments to pursuing better outcomes for all students. However, tonight I ask for a change. In response to the recent social media post by the now resigned assistant superintendent, his post offended me on many levels, beyond the obvious hateful and ignorant rhetoric. It reminded me that prejudice and bias can lurk in the most diverse county in the state. On the day of the post, I decided to look into how diverse BSD administration is. I spoke to the BSD receptionist to ask how many racial minorities work in the higher levels of the administration. I was informed 1 out of 41 by my count. BSD, home to 40,860 students, of which 51.8% are racial minorities, is served and represented by an administration with a minority headcount around 3%. How on earth can you guide the district if you don't even understand the challenges of the students? I have no doubt that many of those 40 are well-meaning folks, but I've been married to my husband, a second-generation Mexican-American, for over 20 years, and I still would not dare to assume I know what it is to be a racial minority. Nowhere in the BSD mission statement, vision statement, or district goal are the words diversity or inclusion present. These 2 words are powerful statements for what any organization, company, or body stands for. More importantly, adding diversity to our guiding statements would also give us a platform and an organizational starting point to expect and enact more minority hiring and participation in this administration. Are there really no people of color applying? And if not, what is being done to find, recruit, and welcome them? Adding diversity to our statements might be a first step to inspiring those applicants. Adding inclusion might be a way to ensure you don't hire bigoted staff who spout off fallacies and ignorance. I'm here to ask the BSD board, administration, and parents to work together to add the words inclusion and/or diversity to the district's various guiding statements and principles. With those changes, we as a district will have the right to expect and demand more minority representation in our administration so that it more fully empathizes and properly represents those minority students. Diversity includes racial minorities, disabled students and staff, and our LGBTQ community. Beaverton is changing, Oregon is changing. I challenge you all to update our mission, our vision, and our district goals to demonstrate to everyone that diversity and inclusion are strengths, that diversity in our administration will become a vital goal, and that BSD is a modern, forward-thinking, eyes-open district.
I've got John and then Rebecca Miller.
Good evening. Thank you to the board and the staff for allowing me to speak tonight. In the old days, I was the chairman of a school board, so I took a lot of abuse, and you can expect the same thing from me tonight, of course. Once you're out, you tend to give people the same thing you got one. And I want to talk about Deputy Superintendent Phillips, not about his bigoted tweet, which was bad enough, but about the essential censoring, about the essential censoring project that he had in reviewing the book Stick, which in turn reviewed by a committee of one board member, a committee of two members of the patrons, a library specialist, and a few administrators, who all voted to allow it. And this man, exercising his right by policy, said, no, we're not going to allow it. Why do we allow this to happen? It's very strange that I'm sitting here addressing the board and I'm looking at the superintendent. Superintendent, when I was the chairman of the board, would be sitting over there with the rest of the staff, and I'd be talking to the chairman, because it's the board who really runs this district. And it's up to the board to review the policies which allow somebody to do this. If you're going to allow it to do it, we should change the name from an assistant superintendent to political commissar. As I understand it, one of his main complaints about this book was that it included vulgar language. Whoa! Has this man ever been on a school bus with 6th and 7th and 8th graders? Vulgar language is a thing of the day. I think it's time for the school board to take hold of this themselves, review the policies, review who's hired, and not let this sort of travesty occur again. Thank you for your attention.
Got Rebecca and then Lynn Mutry.
Good evening, board members. My name is Rebecca Miller. I'm a parent in the Beaverton School District, and I had the honor of volunteering on the health project team since September of 2017 with a great group of people. In my professional life, I work as a planner in human services for local government. Part of my work duties involve engaging members of the public and other stakeholders in shaping public policy, improving programs, identifying and then meeting unmet needs. The resources are thin and the need for services never ends. There are complex rules to navigate, competing priorities, looming deadlines, and most importantly, a great need and desire to get it right in order to serve the community with equity, integrity, and compassion. Because of that, I can tell you the Beaverton School District staff and teachers did an outstanding job of managing the health project team. I'm grateful for the minds and hearts that shepherded us through these past 7 months. Jennifer Hicks and the health cadre, Jared Corden, Ken Streckmeyer, and Susan Ouellette were exemplary throughout the process. For every hour we volunteers spent together, I would not be surprised if they spent 20. Here's what they did well. They made complex materials like Oregon Health Standards, curriculum materials and criteria, Aaron's Law, and board adoption processes accessible. They used a group decision-making process which allowed for dissent and ultimately pushed us to be better, more thoughtful, to get those results. They did the work outside the room that was necessary to make our time together very effective. They addressed controversial topics straight on with professionalism and grace. They respected and trusted every voice in the room and those that provided public comment, and I feel that all of our voices are reflected in the package you'll be looking at tonight. So I decided to apply to join this group because of the question on a 7th grade sexual health quiz my son brought home earlier that year. It read, and I quote, "True or false, girls who date older guys are putting themselves at risk." Although he answered the questions correctly, I gave my poor son and his twin sister a lecture about sexism, blaming the victim, consent, heteronormative bias, etc.
Health education, thankfully, does tackle sex and consent and gender expression. And what I've come to realize in this process is that it is so much greater than that. Health education is based in fundamentals like nutrition, sleep, and exercise, but it is also about teaching our children to be good consumers of information, to better equip them, I'm almost done, to deal with issues they face like poverty and abuse, racism, and illness, to embrace who they are as whole people and to give them the tools they need to make choices that will serve them throughout their life. So our health educators deal with the most difficult topics and need a solid set of standards and curriculum that serves every student well. I believe you will have that before you today, and it's been a pleasure serving with you, Ms. Larson, and I think you can agree with me that the work was well done. Thank you for the opportunity to volunteer and be a part of this.
Lynn, and then Lydia.
Welcome everybody, and welcome to spring. It's getting nice out there. I want to thank the health cadre as well for doing such a spectacular job. And as you know, I've been speaking about the physical health aspect for a lot of kids. Trying to get them to walk and bike to school more, because physical activity helps them be successful in the classroom, and that's what it's all about. Number one. And number two is safety. And that's what we're really trying to do, is for the health and safety of the kids and the community. We've had a busy last term, and it keeps continuing. Walk and Roll Challenge Month starts May 1st, which is tomorrow. We have several schools who are logging steps, we call it walk and rolls, because walk, bike, and bus is really, really good, and scooter and skating. But Sexton Mountain is going to be tallying for a full month to see how many people have walked and biked and how many miles that they are doing. Bethany is also doing it. They started yesterday, so they're rewarding kids who get 100% walking and biking for the whole month. And they don't mind as long as you stay out of the parking lot. Several others are choosing one day, so October 9th is Walk and Bike to School Day. Some people are doing it once a week. So if you want to join in, Sexton Mountain is doing Tuesdays and Thursdays, every Tuesday and Thursday. Ridgewood is doing every Friday. So there's lots of choices, and just ask. I would like to do a shout out to Fir Grove's PE teacher. She is putting on a bike safety class, a volunteer bike safety class with parents and their kids on Monday, this coming Monday, May the 7th, where we'll have some education followed by a community ride, hopefully being able to see a bunch of kids where they live and how they can get to school. It's going to be cool. Also, Vos Elementary has resurrected their Walk and Bike to School programs. After spending a year away from their school, they are ready to start doing monthly events and are really looking forward to making it safe around their school and in their community. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Lynn. Thank you. Lydia, and then I've got a team that I believe are students led by Samantha, so I'll just invite you all after Lydia.
Hello, my name is Lydia Gersh. I'm a senior at Southwich High School, and I am a member of the Beaverton Health Project. So during my work during the Beaverton Health Project, I was educated intensely on the different Oregon health standards, Aaron's Law, and best practices, and many more topics. Every meeting we would review, discuss, and become extremely knowledgeable in every topic we pursued. We examined ideas and topics within the lens of fitting and working with our diverse community. We strived for comprehensibility and inclusivity. Before the Beaverton Health Project, I thought I knew a lot about health education, having received 2 years of it with exceptional teachers and having just had a passion for it and being involved in different health education programs. But after my work with the Beaverton Health Project, there was so much more that I need to know. But leaving, I feel almost an expert. And before I joined the Beaverton Health Project, I was privileged to experience a quality health education. I had dedicated teachers and a determined school behind them. However, I know that's not the case with many schools, not because they do not have dedicated teachers or schools, because we have a lacking standards behind them. With our new standards that we all worked so hard on, I believe that no one will have to be lucky to receive a quality health education. It'll just be there and it'll be normal. As a senior leaving this district and a student, I am proud of the work that this team did because I know my peers will directly benefit from this curriculum and it will better prepare them for their future and their life. Thank you.
Thank you, Lillian. Thank you for serving on this project team. Okay. No, it's, really enough for, it's like 8, right? So if you're gonna say the same thing, it would be awesome if it was 2. But if you've got more to say, then we want, and is Amelia with you also? Did you want?
Oh, Erica, no. There's only 4 of us right now. So.
Okay.
No, I know Amelia.
Amelia's next. Okay.
I will be doing my part in Spanish. So, yeah. Cada día, miles de estudiantes en el distrito.
Can you turn your mic on so you can see the light? Sorry.
Okay. Cada día, miles de estudiantes en el distrito de Beaverton viven con miedo, con temor, porque saben que a cualquier momento su mundo puede ser arrancado de sus vidas. Constantemente escuchamos mensajes de que somos criminales, que no merecemos estar aquí. Y eso es normal para nosotros, pero solo porque sea normal no significa que debería de ser bien que las personas lo digan. El tweet que fue retuiteado por el superintendente diputado fue algo que ya estamos acostumbrados, pero eso no significa que está bien. Somos criminales porque queremos una mejor vida, porque queremos tener las mismas oportunidades que tienen las otras personas. No nos llaman criminales cuando les conviene. No nos llaman criminales cuando hacemos el trabajo que ellos no quieren hacer. ¿Alguna vez han visto a uno de ellos piscar fruta y que solo les paguen lo mínimo? ¿O verlos matarse trabajando para poder sobrevivir en un mundo donde siempre los tratan mal y donde no pueden seguir adelante? La educación es la llave para poder tener éxito. Es la cosa que empodera nuestras mentes. Pero ¿qué mensaje les estamos mandando a todos esos jóvenes que solo quieren poder tener las mismas oportunidades que los demás estudiantes? Que hace su educación y su futuro y sus sueños menos importantes que los de los demás. Los sueños no tienen fronteras y tampoco son un crimen. Y si lo son, entonces todos somos criminales. Why is it that just because we want a better life, we become susceptible to hate? I didn't know that happiness was a crime. I can accept that I can't rebuild and mold the world with my own 2 hands, but I don't know why people who can do something, no matter the size of the decision, sit and watch. Life isn't fair. I wish I could help, but what's the thing that makes you hesitate? Do you not see what's in front of your eyes, or has it become something that's easier to ignore? We say we have our hands tied, yet here we are. Why is it that we tell students to study, yet take school from them? You want higher working students, and let them become that. You have that power. 41,000 students in this district, with 1 out of 4 being Latino, not even including the different ethnicities that also account for our population. Being attacked and living in fear is already bad enough. Making this district a sanctuary district would be taking 1 step further and being able to create a real safe environment for students and families alike. What really angers me, and the saddest part, somehow we don't regret suffering. We've become used to it. Why is it that thousands of kids live in agonizing fear that we'll end up alone one day? It's because nobody here will do anything about it once it happens. Why can't we have dreams of traveling with our parents or siblings? Why can't we dream of being what we want to be when we grow up? Guess it's just something we're not given. I'm sorry that I wanted more than a 5th grade education. I'm sorry for wanting the chance to eat and live in what we consider luxury, yet you label us poor. I'm sorry for wanting more than a few mere cents a day. Those aren't words that we won't say. It's a regret that our parents wouldn't even dare think about. We won't utter this disgusting apology that this society urges and encourages to. Do not let society let you believe that we are criminals, that we are deadlier than assault weapons, because I will clear this up. Just as I am not the only immigrant in this room and country, even less am I a criminal. That's offensive and it hurts all of us. All we want is a chance. That should insult everybody in this room. We're no longer pointing at people with darker skin color. We're pointing fingers at children and families escaping poverty, real poverty, and violence. But to be honest, we've been pointing fingers for a long time now. Forget Mexican, immigrant, illegal immigrant, brown, black, or white. Why can't we dream?
Brer, and I am a student from Health and Science. How can you tell students that education is important if they don't feel comfortable or welcome to do so? Having majority of teachers that are white puts a sort of discomfort to students of color who feel like an outcast. Allowing teachers of color will help students feel more comfortable to be around teachers, allowing for a better learning environment. A small change to this retention would just be by welcoming people of different races, including Hispanic, Asian, and Black members, to be a part of the Beaverton School District Board, teachers, and administration. This would give them a sense of voice and understanding for the students of color. Put your front foot forward and start hiring, retaining, and putting serious effort into recruiting teachers of color. Also, make change early and offer possible students of color for teaching careers and jobs. Thank you.
Sorry, if you turn off that mic, yours will sound better. Thank you.
Okay. My name is Jacqueline Hernandez Perez. I'm a junior at Health and Science. Today I'm going to talk about the lack of representation within schools for Latino culture and its history. Besides the lack of representation of our culture and history, we are forced to take all school subjects in English, which you may notice is greatly impacting our youth and our younger children. The lack of history representation towards many cultures is very vague, leaving many students with very little to no knowledge of their culture past. It's unacceptable how all around school buildings we see posters about the Beaverton School embracing different cultures and ethnicities, but then force us to sit in a desk while we listen to a person speak in English and teach us about history of a place we are probably not even from. I can't talk on behalf of every single culture, but from my point of view, it's pretty ironic how we're told that we are supposed to immerse ourselves into our culture, but then once we step foot into school, we are taught about a culture that's not even ours. All I get taught is one small portion about Cesar Chavez, which in itself is not a representation of our culture. Students need to be immersed into the culture and embraced for wanting to learn more about it, not told that they should just lose interest and focus on what is being taught. Besides many parents trying to teach the students their native language before they begin school, because they are afraid that they will not be able to learn it later on. However, when a kid steps his first foot into school, the first thing they hear is English, a language that many have not ever heard before. This makes them feel out of place and sometimes an outcast because they may not understand. Personally, I have a sibling that goes to an all-English school, and they begin to teach basic Spanish classes. I feel deeply saddened because my sister, which is very upsetting, is at a basic level of Spanish, just like a non-native speaker. I mean, escúchanme, I speak perfect Spanish and I can also speak English. But you know why that is? It's because I was enrolled in a Spanish language school, which helped me create a better support so that I could embrace my culture and my language.
Amelia, and then Eva Maria.
Hi, my name is Amelia. I work across the street at Merlo Station High School. I am the MESHA facilitator. My MESHA students are not able to be here because they are all working. So I am here on their behalf. First, I wanted to thank you for supporting the DREAM Act. In 2010, a document came from the school board in support of the DREAM Act, and we just really appreciate that and hope that the DREAM Act is not officially dead. The Merlo MESHA group created a petition a couple days ago and circulated it through our school and through the district. It is in support of sanctuary status for Beaverton School District. The leaders are working, so they can't be here, but we did get 119 signatures in a really short period of time. So first I wanted to share, a couple staff responded, and so first I wanted to share some of the staff comments. All of our students deserve to come to school knowing that they are safe and protected. Providing sanctuary status to our school will allow our undocumented students and their families a chance to better engage in their schooling and future. I support the students' request for sanctuary. Social justice goes beyond compliance. The trauma students and their families go through are definitely impacting school achievement. Let BSD be a compassionate district that is a steward for human rights. There's a district document called District Equity Policy from June 2nd, 2014, and in it says that the district will incorporate the voice and perspectives of students, families, and communities that reflect student demographics into decisions that benefit student success. So with that, I'd like to read a couple of the student comments from this petition. How has this not happened already? It's time for you to do the right thing. By making the district a sanctuary district, you are showing us and our parents that you support us. I represent many students who are affected either by DACA being documented or undocumented. Many students are also affected by mixed status families. I expect the decision of BSD to be in favor of sanctuary. And lastly, sanctuary school now. Thank you for your time.
Eva Maria, and then Sarah Sanchana.
Hi, my name is Eva Maria Micke, and I have to say that Amelia is the hero of many students at Railway Station High School. Just want to say that because my child is actually also one of the students there, and I have to say Railway Station was a savior for him. And I'm here because he couldn't make himself to come here, so I decided to be his voice. And so that's basically dropped in my lap, so I don't have much time. I just want to tell you that he's very much in support of you all recognizing that it's important for kids to have school being a safe place for everyone, including students who are undocumented, including students who may not fit in your regular box, whether they're queer, whether they're transgender, whether they are something you may not expect that student to be, because they are not safe here in Beaverton. And I can tell you that from personal experience, because there was a time when I was with my child in the ER here at in St. Vincent, where my child told the doctor that he was bullied by a teacher, and that's why he was in the ER. So just so you know, that's real. And I'm telling you that as one parent of probably many who come forward with that. So what you heard here is very real. Very few parents come forward, because I couldn't for years. It's been about 4 years, because it's too overwhelming for us to deal with this. Many of the parents of the students here whose children are in school fearing for ICE to show up, they're not here because they can't be here. They're working hard to make a living. So recognize, just because they're not here speaking, they're not presented here. Don't ignore them, because right now, see that plug over there? I was stunned when I saw that. We empower all students to achieve post-high school success. Right now, the Beaverton School District is failing. I'm so sorry to say that. I don't mean to be that in any bad way, but it's the truth, and it's important that you face that. You fail those children, you fail those parents who are trying their best to support them. I can tell you that. I was there. Help them, listen to them. Listen to that petition. There are just a few of them who have a supportive teacher like Amelia who rallies them together. It's not that place. Sunset High School, for example, and I'm going to say that out openly. That school failed my child. He's still suffering from what he endured there. I'm so sorry. I know I hate to point fingers, but sometimes it has to be said. Thank you so much for listening to me. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Eva.
Hello, I'm Sarah.
Hi, Sarah. And then next up is Vince Jones.
And I'm also going to be speaking about sanctuary. So even though we face the difficulties of today and tomorrow, I still have a dream. It's a dream deeply rooted in the American dream. I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up, live out the true meaning of its creed. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. Some of you may not recognize this, some of you may not. This was said August 28, 1963, by a man who had one of the biggest impacts of civil rights in all American history. And as much as I wish saying this wasn't true, that's not the reality. I can say even 54 years after the speech was given, Martin Luther King Jr.'s dream has yet to come true. I'm here today fighting for what I believe in, and that just happens to be that me, along with hundreds of other students, should be able to go to school without the fear of being ripped out of it when all we were looking for was an education. My parents shouldn't have to feel afraid of waking up in the morning, going to work, not knowing if we'll make it back home to say goodnight and that we love each other. Education is a right everyone has. It's and somewhere we should all feel safe, not like a book or a table that can be ripped out of the building at any time. We all go to the same school, eat the same food, learn the same things, play the same sports. Is it fair because of my status I'm vulnerable to be taken out of my class, that I was only in search of a better future for me and my family? If you knew the amount of fear that runs through my head and the amount of awareness I have of my actions and surroundings, I beg you to forget I'm only 14. Imagine walking out of the front door each morning not knowing if it was the last time you'll ever see your family. At school I want you to feel safe, for as I should be able to have the same rights as the rest of the school. I no longer want to live in fear. We are all one. And who is ICE? What is ICE to deny my safety in a school? Too many innocent students live in fear. Is this what we want in our school district? If this is what it is, I don't want to stand by it. We live in a country where going to get an education is a fear for thousands, but we can all put a stop to it. I hope you consider this not only for me, but for the hundreds of students who have lost their voice. We are the future of the country. Is this the kind of history you want to teach 100 years from now? I have a dream that one day I'll be considered equal, not judged by my color of my skin or hair, that one day we'll have basic rights of an education without a fear. Thank you.
Thank you. And then after Vince, so Melissa?
Welcome, Superintendent and School Board. I'm Vince Jones and I teach at Health and Science School. And as many have already noted today, I think our equity pillar is on the ground. But there are some ways we can maybe lift it back up and to where it should be. And I think I want to go back. I've taught here for 24 years and I've seen it on the ground before. In 2010, a gay student teacher was dismissed wrongly and for only answering the student's innocent question, "Are you married?" The district, though, at that time, beyond just sending out words and messages, constantly, actually took action, but talked to the affected community. So they brought in Lambda, they spoke to them, they helped write new district policy, which led to, I'd say, significant changes in policy for both queer students and staff, and I think it was a great moment in our district. Same with the DREAM Act. It took a lot of work. It wasn't done, and it was very transparent. Some of us worked with the school board member to help draft the resolution, and then it passed unanimously. So I think it's time to listen to the affected community, just like you did in 2010, and then take action. One way to take action could be to regain the trust of the immigrant Latino community, would be to help make our school better reflect our students as far as makeup. So I made a suggestion to the school board that they consider looking at neighborhood zones, real neighborhood zones, where you run in your neighborhood, not district-wide. They did it in Texas because of a court order, and it led to a very diverse school board. Also, for administration, and I'll finish up quickly, sorry, I don't think I had 2 minutes, but I'll go. The two Latino staff members who earned a PhD in Beaverton left the district last year, and I found that really troubling. These were friends of mine and also colleagues who I expected to be in Beaverton. Now they're administrators somewhere else, and I don't even think they had an exit interview. They just disappeared, and the school district certainly helped pay for their stipend to get that PhD, and now they're gone working somewhere else. Latino school board members wrote letters to you, so there are Latino school board members in Oregon, just not in Beaverton. As far as staff...
Thanks, Vince.
Okay, I'm done. Thank you.
I've got Melissa and then Paula.
Hi. My name's Melissa Osmore. I come today unprepared, and I just want to speak to share 2 minutes of my son's story this year. It touches on a lot of the things that everyone is saying in this room. I came to kind of see what this was about for preparation to speak in future sessions, but I can't help myself as I hear students say that that you're in front of a group of people who have an ability to make decisions while they watch things happen. I have to say that I believe everyone here must have some sort of passion to do what you're doing, and there's a lot of talk about safety for every student. But I want to share that my son's a 3rd grader, and as of today, he's not a Beaverton student. He's transferred out of district because I spoke up for his needs as a special ed student earlier in the year when I was told he was moving too much in music class. He has ADHD and sensory processing disorder. He had a great teacher last year and the year before. He didn't even get a chance to know the teacher this year because the principal at the school, and since I can't make complaints, I will not name names, the principal at that school issued me a trespass notice, a warning, the first day that I was pulled out of work to come meet with her. I was advocating that asking if everyone knew he had an IEP. The student resource officer about a month later came barging into my door, scaring my son at bedtime, and my son ended up in treatment for 3 months at a day treatment facility. And on April 6th, when he was out, he sat in front of a new SPED team. Not one of them met my child, and they said that there's not enough data to support that my son's not so mentally ill that he deserves to have the shortened school day on him. He's also a minority and attends a school that's less than 1% black. He's mixed, he's 2 races, and not one person met him. And I just want to say for the 2 seconds that I have that prior to this year, he was only in a general ed classroom. It's not fair that Senate Bill 553 or Senate Bill 263 are not being followed. So whatever policy everybody wants things to be added to, I think it's more important that we enforce and create policies that are being managed, because they're not. My son at home right now just wants to be with me, but he can't. I'm a single mom, I'm a nurse, I'm a board certified mental health nurse, I'm an emergency nurse. And I've met a good 5 people who I've shared this story with have come to me and said they're trying to do the same thing to their son, their children. And I have patients who come day after day. I've seen videos of trauma where people have been told to shut their phones off when they're trying to, record a child being bullied or hurt. And I mean, I have a 7-page story just of this year, and my son has gotten 1 hour of education since he was out of treatment, 4 hours a week because there wasn't a tutor outside of the hours of 8 and 9. And last Monday, he was denied all of his FAPE because there was a records request for a telephone meeting for the other district that has since enrolled him and is giving him an opportunity. And he wasn't even disenrolled from the district then. They reinstated it, but after they've been talking to the district since Wednesday of that week, notified me at 3 p.m. that Friday. And I've talked to a couple of you on the board, I won't name names, and I was told in about November that you guys were aware and assured.
Melissa, thanks.
Sure, thank you.
Paula and then Katya.
Hi, good evening. I'm Paula Inglet. I'm an 8th grade teacher at Five Oaks Middle School. I teach humanities. I was on the English Language Arts Reading Adoption and the Writing Adoption Committee, and also a literacy leader in my building. I'm here to talk to you tonight about STIP. I'm going to be reading a few words from the author, Andrew Smith, in regard to his novel Stick and the actions of the Beaverton School District. In the words of Andrew Smith, I've been teaching at my high school for 25 years now, and for 25 years, my school has had only one of me. But we have had we got our 8th principal last week. Maybe I'm cynical after all my years in the classroom, which I would never trade for anything. But I know that my bottom line is looking out for my students, developing relationships with them and helping them grow through exploring the choices they have in cultivating that growth. I do not believe that the bottom line for an educational bureaucrat is the same thing. They seem to be concerned with finances or telling us why our thermostats have to be kept at a certain level, and so on. I watched Betsy DeVos's recent interview, and I'm pretty sure her bottom line as an educational bureaucrat has nothing to do with mine, nothing to do with kids. On March 24th, I gave a keynote address at a writing conference for young kids. Think of it, March 24th, when all these kids all over the nation were walking out of their own schools for safety, of all places. And it's really ironic and terrifying to me that when I found out about this banning and when I was being interviewed by television news about it on the morning of February 14th, innocent kids were being gunned down on the other side of the country at their school. And here was this bureaucrat patting himself on the back for a job well done by keeping kids safe from the words in the book. And speaking of nightmare worlds, I was that kid in Stick. The kid who was beaten and senseless at home with objects that left scars, who simply did not realize that my home life was not normal and that the rest of the world did not act like this. And it wasn't until I got out of the house that I realized that this was not normal. There are kids out there who need to know this for themselves, and those kids who are in situations reflected in my experiences and experiences of the kids in Stick. Believe me, they are not damaged because of the words in my book, but there may be missed opportunities for reconstruction and maybe for healing. Tonight, I urge Superintendent Broading and the school board to respectfully encourage you to reconsider the overturning of the banned book Stick.
Thanks, Paula.
Hi there. I'm Katia Freeborn. I've been in the district 24 years. I teach at Aloha High School, and I've been a BEA rep all the years that I've been here. And I just wanted to remind you about an email I sent on April 23rd. And I'd just like to encourage you to do everything you can to retain teachers of color, teachers that honor diversity, and I just ask you to reread that email. I do appreciate the email that you sent today, Superintendent Grodding. I really appreciate it. And I also appreciate all of your service. My son is graduating from Sunset High School. My kids have been in school since 2003 in the Beaverton district, so thank you very much for your service.
Thank you. That's all the yellow cards that I was given. Is there anybody else who's holding on to one? Okay. Great. Thank you so much for your time and for your comments. Next on our agenda, we have time for Superintendent Grodding.
Before I get into the details, I too want to apologize to everybody who's here for the hateful retweet that went out. And I think Matt's still here really focuses that that is not a reflection of the work that's going on here in the school district, the hard work that's been taken on by students, staff, administration, our school board. However, we do have a long ways to go. Not only the city, the school district of Beaverton, the communities, it's communities all over our United States. And one only has to turn on the news to see how polarized we are. And I do agree with the students who did a great job. You do need to feel safe when you come to school, whether it's walking into your classroom and or walking into a grocery store or wherever you may be walking into. So I am committed to leaning into that work. And also just for the folks that were here regarding the book, I have sent a message out and I have asked our teaching and learning community to review that decision and to either come back with an affirmed decision or another recommendation regarding the book. So that recommendation, I've asked for that to come to me by May 7th. Moving on, I just want to talk a little bit. 2018-19 budget, I was able to meet with the governor last week, and she talked about the general shortfall that we have coming at us, and as the president of BEA, Sarah Schmidt, talked about, we definitely need some revenue reform. We indicated that. There was about 6 or 7 superintendents in the room, and if we're really going to move education forward in Oregon, we need not only revenue reform, but we need stabilized revenue reform. So we're not wondering year to year what classes are going to be cut, what programs may go away. We need to know so when we invest in something, we can have a long-term commitment to meeting the needs. And just for people to know, I know staff know, but Oregon ranks third from the bottom in the United States for the number of adults per students in our classrooms, in our schools. So that is something we need more adults in our classrooms, more caring adults, and I do agree, more diverse adults in our classrooms that better represent the makeup of our student demographics. Also, I want to talk to you just a little bit about our homeless population. Our homeless population in Beaverton is increasing. Last year it was 1,757, and now we have 1,979 students in 2017-18. And what's probably most alarming is the number of homeless students from 0 to 3 have almost tripled. And our 4 and 5-year-old population is significantly increasing. These are the kids that are going to be coming in and entering our kindergartens. And we need to really, and these are, many of them are students of poverty, historically underserved populations, and they're getting priced out of their homes, whether it's renting a home and or buying a home. We are trying to work with faith-based organizations, other private organizations, trying to attack the housing issue, as well as some of these families, they really just need basic staples like food and clothing. And so sometimes when you're not able to concentrate on where you're going to sleep at night or what you're going to eat or how you're going to pay the electric bills, it's pretty hard to come to school and be ready to learn and or to have that support at home. Parents are their child's first teacher. On a positive note, we just received some information that we are going to receive about a $2.5 million seismic grant for Aloha High School, in addition to the other work that we were going to be doing, and that's going to come to about $8 million. So that is to protect that school, to protect the occupants of that school, to bring it up to seismic upgrades. The other thing we're working on is safety and working with our Beaverton Police Department, and they've been working with advanced active threat response rollouts, and that is at the request of teachers. So heaven forbid there is an incident that teachers and students are trained on really what to do if a horrific incident like that would occur, like happened in Parkland. So they've really been proactive. We're working with those folks and trying to find out how we can dedicate time. So I think it will calm the fears of some students as well as staff, so they're better trained to know exactly what to do. And then as President Schmidt also indicated, telesurvey results are out. Our administrators are looking at them. Our teaching and learning department's going to look at them, as well as our cabinet, and we're going to identify where we have some successes and make sure we continue that great work, but also identify where there are some challenges, whether it regards the size of our classes. Definitely right now, if you go into any school in Oregon or across the United States, I would say we are seeing more trauma, mental illness come into our schools than ever before, as well with students are getting stressed out, whether it's academic stress, stress at home, could be citizenship stress. There's just a lot of kids are under a lot of stress right now, and expecting our teachers to meet the needs of each and every student when we do have some areas where we do need to decrease class size, and all that goes right back to the funding issue. We need more resources in Oregon, and they need to be stable. So that's all I have.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Next on our agenda, we have the leadership from our Beaverton Student Advisory Committee. I see Johan out there.
Hello, my name is Johan and I'm the co-president of the Beaverton Student Advisory Committee. There are a few things I want to talk about. They're on my phone. Before you guys leave, thank you so much for standing up for what you believe in. That is amazing. Keep pushing. I'm an early college student and I go to PCC. And for a year and a half, we pushed for it's awkward. For a year and a half, we pushed for a sanctuary college. And we finally got it, and it was really hard, but you guys are doing great. So thank you. Okay, to get back to what I was going to say. So about a month ago, we had lunch with our superintendent, and when I say we, it's my Beaverton, or our Beaverton Student Advisory Committee. I wasn't able to attend, but I heard it was amazing. And then about 2 weeks ago, we had a meeting with the board, mostly about budget ideas. Our team, what is important to us is class sizes and relationship with students and teachers. Class sizes need to be reduced, and I have heard it many times today, and students agree that class sizes need to be reduced in order to learn in the best way possible. And then also teacher and student relationship is very important, and that can be improved by having less students in each class. We also had a letter writing campaign and to our legislators and our state representatives, which went really well. It was about ideas on gun control, about people feeling unsafe in our district due to what happened in Parkland, and we're continuing that, and we got 600 to 700 letters, which was amazing for us. We're hoping to continue with that, and then also we came up with an Instagram for our district called Humans BSD, so if you guys have Instagram, please follow. We have about 750 people following right now, which is amazing because that was a huge increase. We only had it for a few months, so every week we post photos of our students in every high school, and we basically give them a shout out for being amazing, for their clubs, for their activities, for just being overall amazing, because that's what the Beaverton district is made out of, amazing students. And yeah, I think that's all.
Any other questions for Jahan? Before you leave, I want to publicly thank Johanna. A couple weeks ago, I was working on a project for the board, and I needed the help of a student. And she very graciously called me back. Right away, I was working on kind of a short time frame, and she very wisely guided me and helped me answer some questions because I was working on something that, and I will quote how eloquent I was. I did not want it to suck. And she, I think the feedback has been that it did not, and I really appreciate your help. Thanks so much, Jahan.
Thank you. All right, guys.
Yeah.
Jahan, can you just share with people what you're the recipient of and what your plans are?
I am hoping to go to, or I'm going to Pacific University in the fall, and I'm the recipient of the free tuition scholarship for early college high school. So I go to college for free. That's great.
Thanks, Jahan. Okay, next on our agenda is the report from the team from Cedar Mill, Amy Chamberlain and I don't know, just you. Excellent. Welcome. Amy was here last year with the Finley team.
A couple years ago.
Too. Oh, time's flying.
Yes, it does go fast. And it's been a heavy couple of weeks, and tonight my heart is really heavy listening to staff and students and community. And those who know me know that sometimes I can get a little bit emotional when I speak from my heart. And I want to apologize in advance because I'm wishing I had taken the narrative approach to my note-taking for tonight because I went for the bulleted standpoint, and so I apologize with my hearing everybody speak tonight has really moved me, but I'm going to try to stay on my topic of what I've prepared. So I feel really fortunate to be principal at Cedar Mill, coming into a school that I know how many people come up to me and say, oh, it's such a tiny school, because they remember those times when it was just a couple hundred, but we're growing. We're 439 strong as of today, and it seems like we're getting new students all the time. And I'm fortunate to walk into a school climate that is very strong and positive, but as we grow and as our community changes and our demographics change, also there's that extra challenge with keeping that positive school culture. I feel very supported and appreciative of the work with the culture of care training that the district is providing this year. And in fact, over the last few school days, I've had the opportunity to meet with a few parents, bringing forward concerns as coming into a school that is known as such a tight-knit community school, the challenges that brings for our new students and our families, how they find their place and make their way, especially with the challenges that they bring in their everyday life. So I wanted to thank the school board and the district for also providing that. And as a result of some of those meetings, we're making some changes. If you see, it's not as evident in the action plan that I presented with you because it was more things moving forward to next year, but we're already moving up some of those actions to help make sure that we have are meeting the needs of each and every one of our students and our families and making sure that they are known. Through our regional meetings, I feel really fortunate to be able to get other ideas from other schools. Beaver Acres actually shared an activity they did called The Power of Being Seen, and that was something that, and that's about making sure that every student has a connection with more than just their classroom teacher. And that's an activity that we were going to move into this next year, but we have actually moved that up for June and looking forward to that and making sure that we're making those connections. I felt really fortunate last week. I had the opportunity to attend an event at Cedar Mill, which I wasn't quite sure what was going to happen that night. It was our multicultural night, and I knew that it was going to be representative of different cultures that our ELD teacher had presented. But I was pleasantly surprised to walk in and find different community groups represented within our school, sharing food, music, dance, martial arts, different, a piece of them, and to be able to see them shine. We have 27 languages spoken in our school, and to be able to see that they could highlight and connect. And one of the parents said, I don't feel so alone now. And that was a really powerful statement to hear from them. I also feel very fortunate to work with such a powerful PTC community that also looks at equity as being a part of how they want to drive their decision making. I had the opportunity to share that they're also helping contribute to even something such as school supplies to make it less of a burden for our families coming in and to be able to support those families. One thing that we're working on academically, if you look at our data, is that we are making some gains in some places, not making as much gains as we'd like to in other places, and looking at that growth gap that's developing. And so keeping collaboration is something that's been very appreciated this year with our early release Wednesdays. When I met with staff this last summer, one of the top needs that they were looking for was collaboration and vertical articulation, and I feel like we're laying some really good groundwork with how we're moving forward with that, and to be able to have those conversations so that we're providing constant improvement for our students K through 5 along with all of our grades and our teams. And like I said, I apologize for not taking the narrative form with my report tonight. One of the other things that I was actually surprised to look at was the attendance rate, because to me, when looking at when only about 75% of your kids are attending school with missing 10 or less days, that seemed a very big number. Looking comparatively, I can see that across all schools, that's a number that needs to be addressed. And so that's one thing that we're looking to develop and implement, because we need to have a process for how we're documenting that, and that's something that we're working on currently right now. And some of it could be a relation with families going out of the country, but at the same time we want to make sure that we're following up and connecting and following through on those families.
Thanks, Amy. Other questions? Yes, Ellen.
Well, first I'd like to welcome you to the school board meeting and also to welcome you as a principal there, because it looks like you've only been there for a year.
For sure there.
So what have you identified? I know the year is like the first year is kind of a year of discovery. And just from the numbers, it looks like you inherited a decline in certain areas as far as like fifth grade math and math in general for the school, and for all students, English language arts. So did you identify at least just one thing for each that you maybe will consider focusing on this next year?
Well, what we're doing, we're in the process of one thing right now, and that's developing common literacy agreements across the grade levels, because there has to be that consistency. And so coming up, I think it's the second week of June, it's coming up on the end of the year, but we began by looking at the research behind the units of study, our district adoption, to make sure that we're all clear on what are the key points in the research and what are the things we believe. And our next step is looking at the 90-minute reading block and what the components are of that, and what are the things we're going to commit to K through 5 to make sure that we're doing those well. And primarily, one thing that we're looking at is building that stamina, that reading stamina, and making a commitment in our 90-minute reading block that we look at the grade level guidelines to make sure that we're giving time for kids to read in text and to support their reading with that. And so that's coming up. We were mapping out the rest of this year, trying to decide what do we need to get to a good stopping point at this year to pick up where we left off this year for next year. So that's for literacy. And then for math, I would actually go back and do it a little differently if I had the chance to. When we looked at our data at the beginning of the year, our staff identified math as an area that was a bigger need than literacy. Of course, we have to still keep that literacy focus going on, but I think with the new math adoption, as we dabbled in our literacy adoption, really trying to give ourselves more permission to do that, but I felt like there was a sense of urgency. And so I think that I would have maybe approached that a little bit differently in the sense of not trying to get too much done too soon, but at the same time, we have that sense of urgency we're needing to go forward. I sent some teachers over to another school to observe in a classroom because it was a teacher who's taught from the context for learning for a number of years, and they brought back some learning. The collaborative math PD that came out of teaching and learning was extremely powerful. And one of the things we're looking at, and it's in my action plan, is how do we continue that? Because we have the power in the building to learn from each other, and how do we use our time wisely and structure that wisely so that we can continue growth in that area? Did those answer your question?
Yes, it did. Thank you. Just wanted to comment. I just know that now with the new math adoption, it's more reading centric. So I would hope that there still be a good emphasis on reading. So by the time they get up there, they can read and understand how to do the math work.
Yes, and one thing that I will say is that we've seen an increase with the level of student engagement with the math adoption, and I think that's key. I think when we moved to Common Core and looking for a curriculum that was going to support the standards, but it was, to be in all honesty, it wasn't very exciting for many of our students. And if you were to come into my building and ask any teacher who is implementing context for learning, they would say that the time on task, the engagement piece is there, and kids are talking about math, and that's really exciting and powerful.
That sounds great to me, talking about math. That's awesome.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
Leanne?
Thank you for being here. I have two questions. One is you scored really high on students feeling engaged and that at least one adult cares about them. What do you think has been going on there? I know it's data from before, but what have you observed in your 1 year that would...
Well, I would say if you were to ask any person who's been at Cedar Mill for longer than a year, and I would hope this year as well, that they would say that the one word that defines Cedar Mill is community. And that came up among staff, it comes up among parents, it comes up among students. And I think because there was a consistency in administration and relationships was a priority to him, and I'm trying to carry that torch throughout as well, keeping that at the forefront. And that's why also with our growing population, why I want to make sure that we're making those relationships with our new families and our new students coming in so that they can experience that same level of community.
Great. My other question is, I noticed that your data isn't disaggregated for ethnicity. Is that because your numbers are so little and it would skew the percentages, or?
It's because of the data subgroup, yes, from what I understand.
Thank you.
Yes, Susan?
So my question is a demographic question about the growth at Cedar Mill.
are there a lot of new houses around there or rebuilds or
New
people moving
development,
out?
and then many of the apartments down by Market of Choice, those feed into our school as well. And actually, I just had a principal chat last Friday and was made aware that there's a development going in our attendance area that also is slated to have 45 homes built on it. So it's a combination of homes and then also families moving into the apartment areas there. Thank you.
Questions? Amy, thank you so much for the good work that you're doing every day. We're glad that you're down at Cedar Mill, and I understand, in fact, I think somebody new moved into Cedar Mill at Tennis Fountain. No kids, though.
Oh. Thank you.
We can adopt.
And apologies if I went a little bit off my plan, but
That's all good.
I understand.
It's a favorite thing for the school board to have people come in. Thank you so much. I'd like to invite now the team from William Walker.
Good evening. I'm going to go ahead and start, and then I'll hand it over to my VP over here. And I did have a little script just because I knew today would be definitely heavy on everybody's heart, and including mine and the community that I serve. So, good evening. As a transplant from California, I'm excited to share that this is my first year as a member of our William Walker, Beaverton, and Oregon community. For this reason, my focus has been building relationships and taking into account the current structures and practices we use to advance student achievement and build positive, collaborative relationships with our students and stakeholders. This year, we have also been very focused on getting ready for our move to Timberland, a move that involves a ton of purging, packing, and collective encouragement. It has also been a great opportunity to capitalize on building school spirit around the opening of our new school in 2019-2020. As we prepare for this move, we're working with alumni to celebrate the closing of one chapter in the life of our current building with a farewell celebration in May. Then the opening of a new chapter with a return to our original school mascot of the Wildcats, and the blending of our old school colors with the color scheme of our new building, blue and green. The green representing William Walker of the past, and the blue embracing the William Walker of the present and future. As we plan ahead, our leadership team has recognized that our students don't have the same starting line when they enter our school. This fact fuels the why behind our commitment to serve our students. It drives the need to provide all William Walker students with the instruction and structures needed to advance their academic vocabulary and conversations. Our staff has collectively identified the need to explicitly integrate academic discourse, strategies throughout the learning day, and systematically teach the elements needed to have students highly engaged in purposeful content discussions. To achieve this outcome, we believe it is fundamentally imperative that we have positive relationships with our students and families. With the help of our culture of care training and our student success coach, we have embraced the beginning of this work. At this time, I'd like my Vice Principal, Mrs. Wendy Bernard, to elaborate on the work we've done in this area.
Good evening, and I do believe, there we go, thank you. So I believe that the culture of care framework and bringing the student success coaches on board, as well as the power of our early release Wednesday time, those two have combined to make a really impactful on student learning at William Walker this year. So those are two big thumbs up from where we're standing. As you know, the culture of care work is based on what kids do as well as they can. And when kids are not doing well, whether it's a difficult behavior or an undesirable behavior, it's indicative of a lagging skill. And so we've been really working with our staff this year to identify what those lagging skills are and help teach those. And so it's not about a misbehavior or a naughty student. It's about, okay, what does that student need to be successful? And that's what equity is, getting kids what they need to be successful. So we started that work with, the foundation was really around adverse childhood experiences, talking about the impact of those on students and their capacity, their resilience, and what it means to be a trauma-informed building. And we've also thrown in some brain research. You might hear kids in our building talking about the amygdala hijack. They certainly are talking about the zones of regulation. Like, oh, Mrs. Bernard, I was in the red zone, which means that they were mad and maybe were not, responsible for really making great decisions at that point. So we've been really, really delighted to help our staff and students come on board with that language. We're really trying to focus, we're trying to keep kids in class, and in order to do that, we're focusing on prevention, and that is done through a variety of strategies. Number one, we want teachers to just have a lot of tools in their toolbox, helping kids regulate, calming centers in their classrooms, having kids in community circle to start their day or to come together around a difficult circumstance, or just to share, their favorite dessert, whatever it is. It builds community, it builds relationship. And then we have also the breakfast club, which is an opportunity for our students who come in a little dysregulated to just have a quiet start to their day with other students. And we've seen some really unique relationships with like 5th graders mentoring 1st graders developing. And so there's obviously a need for a great mindset shift when we're talking about more restorative practices. And so we're kind of plodding along in that work. But I've seen just a ton of growth this year, and I'm just really pleased with that.
Thank you.
Thanks. Yeah, Donna.
First, I'd like to welcome you both to the school board meeting. And I know you're new too. So I just kind of had a question, because obviously I'm not an educator, so sometimes education speak I don't always get. So I was hoping you could unpack this for me. So I know that you were kind enough to address how there's a lot of behavior regulation skills that are being adopted at the school. But in your comment here, you said that you've identified that our biggest need is to develop the academic language of our students. So could you unpack that? What does that mean, academic language? Thank you.
So academic language is more of your tier 3 vocabulary, which many of our students are still struggling to be able to decode and decipher. So it's what you read in a textbook, and it's if you take out all the common words of and, the, and it, you're left with your academic content. And so it's being able to understand that vocabulary and be able to connect to it, to be able to synthesize the information. But with the Common Core, it's not just about memorizing the information. It's about really internalizing what it means to you as a learner and how you can use that information to change the world around you. And so our students are very used to having someone talk to them. And so we are really encouraging our students to have a voice, and that their thoughts are of value, and that there's not a wrong answer, that what you're thinking is not wrong, it's powerful, and it will help us be able to help you grow and achieve great things. So what our teachers are doing is we're really looking at internally what are our current systems in place, how are we encouraging that, are we even encouraging that in our activities, and then systematically teaching children how to have those conversations, how to have what we typically have a conversation and we volley back. You build upon my idea, you maybe add on, you elaborate on it, and to be able to have that sustained conversation and enjoy the conversation about the academics that we're learning.
Excellent. Thank you so much. That was great. Thank you.
Yeah, Leah.
Thank you so much for your report. I have two questions that have to do with early release.
Yes.
And so my first one is, if I were to walk into the school, would the teachers tell me it's been a productive time this past year? And secondly, if so, how has it affected students?
I would say yes. They would say it's been very valuable. And I think it has helped them have some common planning around the learning that the students are doing in math, especially the new math adoption, and be able to understand that and share just the risks teachers are taking with their instructional practices. So I think that's what they would say students are benefiting from. Do you have?
I can give you a really good example from our first grade team, and they actually, we use a co-teaching approach to the English as a second language instruction, and they, instead of deciding to go visit some other classrooms where co-teaching was happening, they decided to shine the light on themselves. Through their early release time, they talked about it and planned it, and so they were, they set it up so that they did an instructional round just in their first grade hall. And so the ESL teacher taught each writing class, and then the other teachers watched and focused just on what they saw students saying and doing. And then they got together during their early release time and you know, went through the process, and they all said it was one of the most impactful professional learning experiences they'd ever had. And not only were they able to see each other engaged in you know, what they're as teacher, which they never had. They had worked as a team. They so they got, you know, some tips and tricks from each other, and they were admiring each other, but they were also really focusing on what students were able to do. And I think that it's a really prime example of them lifting each other up, and that's really what early release is about.
Great, thank you.
Eric.
Well, welcome to Oregon. I was wondering, in your first year, do you have any like pearls of wisdom or any experience from your California experience that might be valuable for our district here in Oregon?
Oh, pearls of wisdom. You know what? It's very different, because I would have to say that, you know, it's just like buying a house. You know, it's really hard to move your new furniture into your old furniture into your existing house, your new house. You know what I mean? It's not possible. You want to make it fit, but it isn't. So I think every district, every state is very different and unique, and that's what makes Oregonian people so good, wonderful. And so I'd hate to say that what's been done in California, they have the right answers, because it's just a completely different structure. So no pearls, just glad I'm here.
Yeah.
You can talk. I was just going to say you have a future in politics in Oregon. I have a question where we have economically disadvantaged. There's just asterisks there.
Yes.
Oh, I think I can answer that.
Oh, because this subgroup, I think.
So we have a grant at William Walker where 100% of our students receive free and reduced lunch and breakfast. So I think that is why the asterisk is there. So we don't actually have the current data. It went, several years ago, it went above 90%, and at that time the grant kicked in. And so because there are not applications to track, that data is not available.
And then I have the same kind of question, why it is blocked out on the back sheet of growth under English language arts for ELL students on the back here, why that was blocked off.
Because English language learners.
I'm assuming it's the same rate.
It's just above 90%, so we don't even.
Right. Maybe Brenda, could you comment on that?
I'm not sure what she's looking at.
So economically disadvantaged.
No, it's the ever English language learners, and I just don't think that we can get that.
Yeah, it's fifth grade growth.
For board members, John runs these reports, so the principals believe them.
It looks like it had some figures there, but they were blacked out.
And that was
Maybe
part
they may have been inaccurate.
And that was partly when I did the report. I also looked at the report card. So if you, what I provided with attached, no, I don't think, because it overwent. But I referred to the two report card rating details of 16-17 and 15-16, and those actually do have the leveling and the subgroups of them within English language arts.
They're blacked out on every, like, you know, Cedarville has it. It's, you can look at the other schools too. They're always.
But we do have a significant high population of English language learners. It predominantly makes it up.
I assume that. I got that when you look at your demographic. I could figure that. I just...
But I would also say in that, which is not included in that subgroup, is what I call our language impoverished students. They're not our English language learners, but they are language impoverished and definitely need the support in language development.
And for, you know, for a board member, that was great information for me to know, that I did not realize that you had that grant because you had. So thank you for that information.
So, and
Yeah,
I'm sorry
Susan.
for kind of, you know, I noticed the number of class days missed due to suspensions or expulsions. That they were at 54, then went down to 13, and now they're back up to 52 from, you know, the 16, 17. And I'm just wondering, you know, with all the new supports, you know, are you seeing a difference or more kids staying in school this year than last year?
Definitely, yeah. And if I'm remembering just anecdotally from last year, there were a couple of students who were persistently having physically aggressive issues, and that over time did result in suspension. So I think there's a chance that maybe 2 or 3 students make up the lion's share.
I would like to share, though, with our attendance data, what we've been doing this year is we've been starting a student success team process where we actually invite parents in and do an action plan on increasing student attendance. At the table, we have our counselor, we have our social worker, as well as the teacher, the parent, myself, Mrs. Bernard, if she's able to attend, because she might be covering a classroom, so that the teacher can be there, as well as our student success coach. And it really has been a powerful meeting. Some of our older students we'll invite to the table once we have a discussion with parents to figure out, is this actually something that the older child is reluctantly wanting to come to school, or is this more of kind of a family systemic issue? But we have seen a very high success rate as a result of these meetings.
Thank you very much. Welcome to Oregon. Thank you for the good work that you're doing for William Walker students. We are also looking forward to your move. I know that that's an exciting, scary thing, but we know it's going to be great for the William Walker community.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
And then we're going to take a break, but Mary, did we take one more card, but then they left? Okay, we are going to take a break. We will reconvene at 8:20. Can you turn your mic on?
It is on, so I guess I just need to put it.
Thank you.
For 16, 17, and 17, 18, enrollment and weightings are down and local property taxes are up statewide. This brings our fund balance for general fund back up to 6.6% projected for June 30th. We are advertising a supplemental budget hearing for our May 14th board meeting. In general fund, we'll increase revenue by $4 million in state school fund, investment earnings, and ESD revenue. We will appropriate expenses in general fund for classroom teachers allocated in the fall, as well as increased costs in maintenance services and transportation. We will also transfer $500,000 in the categorical fund to support new school opening purchases from the facility grant. So watch for a supplemental budget next month. It is being advertised as we speak, and we'll be asking you to make that appropriation. Thank you.
Thank you, Claire. Are there questions for Claire? Yeah, Leanne.
Comment. My last time that I can say this in front of the board, that I am very appreciative of our community and the 300 teachers that we're able to buy with the local option levy, so everybody needs to get out to vote so that we can continue that.
I believe the board is unanimous in that sentiment. Is there anything else on that topic anybody would like to say? All right. Terrific. Thank you, Claire.
Thank you, Claire.
Steve, welcome for a discussion of the early warning system.
Absolutely.
Is this on? There we go.
So I'll be briefly, you've got background information, so I won't recover that, but I thought what I would do is briefly walk you through kind of how we're using all three elements of the early warning system. So I'll give you permission to turn your backs to me if you want to look at the screens. What you're seeing here is one part of the early warning system that deals with individual student lists and I'm going to just kind of walk you through top to bottom of how this report is put together and get a sense of how the tools that building staff have to, as students start to struggle academically or with behavior or attendance, ways we can capture that and intervene at the earliest possible moments for those students. So this report, if you look at the top, a lot of different filters can be activated for this to get at either a whole school or subgroups of students. This is all scrambled data, which is why you're seeing the student names look a bit different. We, for student data privacy, are running this out of a training database. So this is not real data, but for this purpose, it will show you how this is organized. So at the top, and this really came from the principals, they wanted a lot of flexibility. So wanted to look at, can we filter by programs? Can we look at specific counselor caseloads to be able to make sure that we're getting these students to the appropriate staff? So the top is all filters that can be activated. If you look in the middle section here, the color-coded, the way we've done this is, and this is again working with our secondary leadership to talk about what would be important criteria for this. And so we've color-coded the early warning categories with not passing 3 or more classes and attendance less than 90%. Being something that school building staff really need to pay attention to and take a look at, and then moving into not passing through more classes, but attendance is over 90%. And then moving through the filters, it really talks about, they're looking at, you can see different gradations of not passing classes and attendance. So even though there's a lot of data here, really what constitutes the logic in the early warning system is the passing classes and attendance. So, and if you have questions, feel free to jump in. Yes, Dawn?
Yes. I have a couple of questions.
Sure.
One is, how often would the teachers have to put in this information in order for it to be on the report? That's one question.
Sure. This is near real-time data, and we say that because there's so much data being compiled and built for this report that we have it run every few hours. So the great thing about the early warning system is when you think about attendance data and gradebook data, that data is only up to a few hours old because the data from being inside of a teacher's gradebook to actually being turned into use for the report.
So does it like have some sort of error warning or something if a teacher doesn't put in data frequently? Because I would think it would be important to know. I guess that probably goes into my other question.
Sure.
You know, obviously you say it's accurate data, but how often is the data provided to the teachers in order to do their evaluation? So that would be in keeping with what would happen if a teacher should fail to put in information, if I'm making any sense there.
Sure, absolutely. So this does pull directly from the student information system and the teacher gradebooks in synergy. So if there is data in there that's either changed or added, it's going to pull immediately, like I said, within a couple hours. And so if it's not, then it's just not going to get factored in. And I'll show you a little bit more about that when we do look at course detail data. But as teachers enter, and teachers are entering assessment information all the time. And so as it is entered into gradebooks, then we're actually able to use it for this purpose.
So I'm assuming that this is going to be used by the counselors and the students and everybody to figure out what strategies to use with the children, or
yeah, it's seen a pretty heavy use. Over almost 3,000 uses since the start of school, secondary only. And so it's used quite frequently. It's used by multiple people within the building. The ability to filter by counselor is important, because then we can start to, counselors could take a look at the students that they're working with. Office staff are able to use it, and of course building leadership is able to use it. So if we move down,
that's the only questions I had, so
sorry.
No worries.
Good. So if we move down, so you see the students here that are in the not passing through more classes. This is kind of the level of detail. And what our secondary leaders said was very important to them was knowing information about the student name and grade and GPA, but also how they're doing academically. So count of Fs, that's an important criteria that was used and identified for this report. Judgments 2 or under, so the count of Fs is the mark at the reporting period. The judgments 2 or under that's the more summative, formative assessment. So as those assessments are being entered in, they're not a grade, but it's able to actually use both of those. So this identifies how students are doing in between that grading period as judgments or summary judgments are entered. Attendance, and then you see for all categories, current, last, and year, that was identified as important. Period absences, attendance, authorized, unauthorized only, and then all absences to give a picture of the student attendance. Mobility, we're looking at how many times have students moved as a factor. Information that would be important to this report. And then discipline. So it's really, when we think about early warning systems, academics, behavior, and course grade. So ABCs is how they call it. The last part of this report I wanted to show you, and I'm probably going to vamp for about 10 seconds. This is in our training database. Oh, it's faster than I thought. It is pushing our training database, which is not very heavily powered because it's just for training. This is it's really pushing it. So I'm grateful that's up here because I wasn't sure it was going to be. So when I click to the course detail, this really moves into the individual student, and it gives a picture over time of how they're doing in their courses. So you see all the courses lined up, the grades they have, the absences per course, which can be different, and they can be looking at our students coming for certain periods and not for the entire day. So this is very useful information. And then additional reports that are connected, deep dives into attendance and discipline. So that's what we call the student list report. And I'm going to move to the next, just cover very briefly the next 2 pieces of the early warning system, because while this is for building leadership and specific staff, teachers aren't using the data in this format, so we have something different from them. So if we, I'm just going to make this a little larger. I'll move to that. The teacher view, we added icons because what we heard was this is a very valuable report, but how would teachers know if students are starting to struggle academically, maybe not just in their course, but in others? So we created icons, and this again is all scrambled data, but as students start to fall within those categories of the early warning system of needing support or concerns about academic or behavior attendance, teachers now can hover over an alert, and then they will see a detailed view. And so this is an example of what a teacher would see in the grade book as they hovered over the icon. So they could see that, oh, this student's not passing 1 or 2 classes, and their attendance is below 90%. And then lastly, this is brand new. This is called the school summary. And so this, while the other one was focused on individual students or groups of students, questions from secondary leadership were about how can I see a summary of what's happening via early warning systems in my school. So just to the left column here, this is a breakdown by grades and by programs and percentages. So very quickly, building staff could take a look at this and they could say, okay, now how are my 9th graders doing, or my individual grade levels? Up at the top, there was interest in, I would like to see how students are doing with regard to passing core classes, core content areas, and then non-core classes, and then all classes, of course. And then finally, we added an attendance grid or attendance metric that shows the individual school and the district average. So those three pieces together comprise our early warning system, and what we're trying to do is make sure that the appropriate staff and all the teachers and staff in schools have access to this information, so as students start to struggle, they're able to intervene quickly. So that, any other questions?
Questions?
One
Yeah.
question. Yeah. So do you have a couple super experts that know how to use this really well, so they can make sure that the tool that you have here, which looks really powerful and excellent, would get used well?
Yeah, I would say the experts are the people in the buildings using the tool. We did do quite a bit of training with building administration and leadership in the winter months. There was a video, I put the link in there if you want to see Mr. Struckmeyer do an excellent job of walking people through this. Great watch it if you haven't seen it already. But we have done some training to make sure, and then as people have questions or concerns, they're able to contact us, and we're continuously refining and adding elements to this.
Yes, Susan?
Just a quick question. Thank you, Steve. So I'm just looking at the usage graph here, and it actually looks like, the usage was going up in the fall, but it's actually going down in the spring. So are you getting any feedback as to why?
I think it's time of year, end of term things. We're not seeing that, we're still hearing consistent positive feedback on use. I think it's has to do somewhat with the cadence of reporting periods and time. But you're right, it has dropped off a little bit, particularly in March. March we had spring break,
yeah,
and then April's a partial month. So
okay,
we're seeing that drop off. I think some of it's due to calendar. I think.
Yeah, Leah?
Mine's more of a comment. This is really awesome, and I would love to see maybe next year either it be in a report at the end of our board meeting, our board packets, just so we can get more feedback after it's been in place. How many students has it helped alleviate some disasters, how, just the usage and the data from it, because this is really amazing work. So I'd love to, in a year, maybe it takes 2 years, I don't know what the time frame is, but it would be great to just get some feedback, and whether that come in a report form or an actual presentation before the board, that'd be awesome.
Tom?
Of the 131 staff members, is it primarily being used by counselors? Is it being accessed by homeroom teachers?
It's mostly counselors and office staff and building leadership, and it looks a little bit different depending on the building and who they have run the reports.
Okay.
So I would say it's a mix. Teachers are consuming it through the icons on the gradebook, so they don't have to go to an extra place. They're already in there taking attendance, so we figured we want to make that as quick and intuitive as possible for them, so there's no extra place you have to go to. And then building staff, it really depends upon the structures in the building. I'd say counselors are pretty heavy.
Okay. And is it, in terms of like access patterns, are people looking at this on a weekly basis, a daily basis? And
it's
how?
frequently.
Okay.
Yeah, again, depending on the school, it's very frequently.
Thank you.
Steve, I have a couple just detail I want to make sure I understand. So it looks to me like use is on I wonder how my students are doing basis. Are you also pushing out reports or anything like that, so that it's just, I don't have to, it's this time of year, so we're letting you know we just had progress reports or something like that? Is that, does that make sense?
Yeah, in terms of communicating. Yeah, we haven't done that. We did some pretty heavy communications, I would say November, December, January. We're really trying to build momentum, and then we've just eased off on that, but that might be something to send out.
And then the teacher note, does that show up for a principal or a counselor? If you've got a student coming in, will they automatically see that kind of flag so that, we're having a discipline situation, and also you're not on track? Or
Yeah, the like I said, the information is, it's very frequent. So it's like, we don't want to call it real time because it's not true, but it's close. It's sure close.
You're using what you have, right?
Yeah, it's very close to real time. So.
Okay, thanks for helping me understand. Yeah, Tom?
Yeah. Just thinking about that, is there a function or a way this can be used where it pops up and says, you know, all of a sudden the student has crossed that line, right, between the number of absences, you know, being over 10 or something like that, and then there's a flag that goes up and that's generated in a report that like alerts folks, or do they have to always go into the system?
That is a great question. One of the pieces of feedback we got on this would be, it would be really good maybe on a weekly to show change. So if a student is starting to struggle with attendance or starting to struggle with grades, how did they do last week? Did they move? You know, did they move into a different area of concern? Although they're all areas of concern, but that's something that we've just recently been asked to kind of show a performance over the last few weeks, so we could look at trajectory. So the group's working on that. It's a bit of a challenge to figure out how to do it, but I think we can. And then the other thing I think that would be valuable is how could we share this out with parents, maybe through Parent View. So as students are starting to struggle, parents have a window in at the earliest possible. So it really is that combination of parent and teacher and staff.
Thanks.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Steve.
Fantastic.
Appreciate the work.
Thank you.
Good. Brian has been here waiting patiently. Thank you so much for both attending our work session and our business meeting.
Board Chair Brian, members of the school board, thank you for having me here. You know, I think an hour and 20 minutes or so is really nothing after you sat through a couple, 3-hour regional transportation plan hearings. So
you do get paid for that, right?
Yeah, I think your chairs might be more comfortable than the chairs in our council chamber, though. So I appreciate that. So the material you have in your board packet covers 2 quarters. Because of our kind of 6-meeting-a-year schedule, which has created all sorts of problems for the staff, which I want to thank them for working out the schedule and being patient. So we have the 4th quarter of 2017 and the 1st quarter of 2018. Overall, the main message is the projects are on track. There's the occasional blip, but the staff is proactively managing them and communicating regularly, so the committee hasn't had any major concerns. Given that we haven't had to deal with problem projects, we spent some time on other issues over the last several months. We spent some time talking about the Bethany Repipe project, also the ACMA construction schedule update, and then we started our conversation about the prioritization for spending of program reserve funds. We have not finished that, partially because we think our recommendation, though it's not a formal recommendation at this point, would be that you not spend them yet. But we want to continue working on that, and staff is going to be bringing back more information in the future to help us think about ways that we might prioritize that. I don't recall if I mentioned this the last time I was here, but the committee elected Cheryl Tweedy as the vice chair. So my time as chair is running short, and Cheryl will be next in line. At our last meeting, I just want to mention that we held it at Aloha High School and had the opportunity to tour the Innovation Fair, which was a fantastic experience. And I think it was great for us to get out and we spent some time at Mountainside and Sato, but seeing Aloha and the stuff that's happening out there was a great experience too. I really appreciated that. And finally, I just wanted to thank the board. I have some colleagues who participate in other bond accountability committees for other school districts. And there are 2 things that I think has made my experience and the rest of the committee's experience very productive and positive. And the first is that the board has done a great job of setting very clear expectations for the bond accountability committee. And the second thing is the board has been very respectful of the charter that's been given to the committee. And I think that's allowed us to be successful, and I hope you feel like we are providing good service to the board. But it's been a very positive experience, so thank you very much.
Thank you, Brian. Are there questions? Yeah, Donna.
Well, it's not really a question, it's just a comment. So if I can have any influence at all, I know that eventually you're going to be considering what to do with the contingency funds. So safety is really important. You know, that's a big thing. And there's a lot of issues at our schools still regarding locked doors and having doors and things like that. So if I could put in a suggestion, it would be perhaps that should be on the top of the list for consideration for what to do with the funds. That's all I'm going to say. Thank you.
And that's certainly been in our conversations about priority. Safety seems to be something that probably is going to, regardless of whatever process we go through, is going to be one of the most important things to think about.
Yeah, Becky.
You've gone through cycles here with this now, and because you have expertise in other areas, do you see ways as we're going to the final phase of this, as we're coming to the final projects of this, of any restructuring of how you report to the board or how the committee is restructured? Do you have any advice or anything that, as you said, your time is short, is what you said?
I think the recommendation I would give is, at this point, we are through the large projects. There's a significant level of trust between the committee and the board and the staff. I think you could probably go to quarterly meetings. I think, frankly, we've had a little bit of a challenge coming up with material for meeting every 2 months. It's a good problem to have. Things are in good shape. We don't have a lot to talk about. We're kind of running out of schools to tour at this point. So,
you'll never run out
of new schools to tour.
The prioritization can take on a life of its own.
It could.
All right. Well, Brian, we just really appreciate the service that you've given. April, so I don't know if you'll be back in this. Maybe Cheryl will con you into coming for the next report to the board. I also wanted to applaud you for having a meeting that wasn't out at a new school. I know that at least our inboxes are already starting to fill with project ideas for other schools, and I think the more you're in our non-new schools, the more you'll understand the challenges that those have. So I guess that would be my only recommendation to the committee. I know it's a real hassle for staff. However, there's really no better way to get a feel for what the breadth of the district is than in being in our buildings. And most people, and I think board members are included in this, we think all schools are like the one that you have the most impact with and interaction, and that's absolutely not the case. So thank you for your leadership and for the work that you're doing, team. We look forward to your next report.
Thank you.
All right, Jared and Ken are here, and I know there's a lot of us members of the health project team that were wishing they were first on the agenda. Thank you for sticking it out.
Good evening. It's my pleasure to introduce the members of the health project team that are here this evening to talk about the recommendation we're bringing forward this evening. I'm going to start at the far end. Gretchen Mullers is our TOSA for outreach and engagement. Chrissy Lawrence is an elementary TOSA that supported the health team. Jennifer Hicks is a teacher at Mount Side High School and a part-time TOSA in teaching and learning to support health. I'm Ken Struckmeyer, Jared Corden, both in teaching and learning. And we have Krista Hawkins, and she's a community member and the director of school programs for the Oregon Dairy and Nutrition Council.
Good evening, superintendent and board members. Last spring, Ken and I were sitting here asking for your authorization to form a health project team. And wow, do we have an amazing group. You heard from some of them tonight. We have a group that we are profoundly grateful for. A group that is incredibly talented, dedicated, and passionate. We had students, parents, teachers, administrators, board member Leanne. We want to publicly thank them for their work. We began working this fall, starting with monthly meetings and then moving to weekly meetings as we got close to this time. And we're excited to bring this report and this recommendation to you tonight, and we hope that you will accept this for review and consideration tonight. We've been really impressed with this project team who deeply understand that academic success is indeed inextricably linked to student health. This is a group who understands and has a common commitment to improving health education K-12, instilling habits that would predict student wellness now and into the future, increasing student safety, preventing abuse, and strengthening our connections with our parents and community to these ends. I'd like to introduce and pass the mic over to Krista Hawkins, who served on the health project team as one of our valuable community members.
Thank you. I'm Krista Hawkins. I'm a parent in Beaverton. I am a registered dietitian, and I am director of youth wellness for the Oregon Dairy Nutrition Council. And I can't tell you how honored I was to be on this committee. The health project team was amazing. The organization spectacular. The thoughtfulness and the whole process from beginning to end, identifying the whole. Making sure everybody's voices were heard, asking who was at the table, who wasn't, how we could get all of vast views on people's perspectives, not only for students, but for staff and the entire community. I kept telling people at the end of the meetings, wow, it was amazing. We had these 2-hour meetings and they ran really smoothly. As I said, the background information was spectacular. When the committee had, the team had questions, additional research was always done and communicated to us efficiently, so we'd be prepared for the next meeting. So my hat's off to everybody. I made a few notes because I wanted to make sure to hit some things. I felt that overarching the commitment from everybody on the team was, as I said, just outstanding. The focus on the students was never strayed from. Everybody's focus was on students' health, short and long term. Not just to have it for a class, but for lifelong skills to be healthy students in their whole educational career and thereafter in life. With that said, it was also brought up to the focus was on how staff can support that in every school building, not just one school building, not just in one grade. That it was spectacular, and I work with schools around the state and districts. This commitment is really outstanding. I think the variety of lenses that were brought to the table and the thoughtful discussions that really helped everybody's viewpoints be open and consider all the very diverse community that we have. I have really only good things to say. I think every lens was looked at as best as our abilities, and I think that will continue to be the focus, and I think that the commitment to the quality of the education and the professional development was also really noteworthy.
Thank you for giving us the opportunity to come and present this proposal to you tonight. I've had the extreme pleasure of working with this amazing group of individuals to help bring this information to you, many of whom are here with us tonight to show their support for this. Listening to the various testimonies tonight really attests to why we need quality, comprehensive K-12 health education in Beaverton. When I first came together with the health cadre, our goal was to create health literate students, which essentially is giving them the ability to access, understand, appraise, apply, and advocate for health information and services to maintain or enhance their own health and the health of others. And we are starting to see these student voices come to that. Our first goal was to really figure out what is it we want our students to know and to be able to do. And we based this information off the national health standards, the Oregon State health standards, which were just adopted in December 2016. And then we looked at what we were currently doing within Beaverton, what was working and what we felt needed some change. And the long-term and supporting targets that are being presented to you was a combination of those efforts. We also took some time to really look at what are those practices we are going to use to provide this information to our students, to our community. And we looked at Shape America, which is Society of Health and Physical Education, to get their guidance and feedback on those current practices that are working to help our students lead healthier lives. We also looked at state laws that are in play and noticing that we are not necessarily in compliance with some of those, but our recommendation to you today would bring us to that compliance, especially with Aaron's Law, along with the Healthy Teen Relationship Act and the Human Sexuality Education and Drug Prevention Curriculum. Highlights of our targets, where you might see some shifts from what we have been doing previously, is we really wanted to make sure we were providing more medically accurate information, and there's a shift to start that younger, kindergarten. We wanted to make it a more skill-based approach to teaching health and not so concept-heavy, because yes, the kids need to know, but they more importantly have to know what to do with the information they're being given and given time to practice and refine those skills. We, as part of our plan, we know that our educators are going to need more practices in trauma-informed instruction. We need more support with culturally responsive teaching and to create a curriculum that is more inclusive. And you will see that our efforts to do that are represented within the academic supporting targets especially. We also know that we can't do this necessarily all on our own as health educators. We are looking for community partners to help support these programs. On our proposal, you will see we would like to partner with CARES Northwest, SARC. The Dairy Council has always been on our side, and we work closely with. Youth Line is another one that we're looking to help with some support with mental health. And again, it's about building a community effort to really help support our students and community, our parents. With Aaron's Law, there is a component where we need to provide parental education as well. And we are hoping with this adoption, we would be able to help provide those services.
I'm going to give you a little bit of information on the professional development plan. If you look on page 61, we have an implementation plan, and there's a phase 1 and a phase 2. 2018-19 is phase 1. We're going to start with the why. We're going to introduce the new standards. We're going to introduce Aaron's Law to the teachers, and we're also going to introduce the new revised comprehensive health education guide, which includes answering difficult questions protocol. So we want to build that background knowledge for the teachers first. So that first year, we're going to focus on that. We're going to take 3 hours in the fall. We're going to spend the summer creating the training, and then we're going to give it to the leaders of the school, the administrators, and the administrators with their counselors and or intervention teachers are going to present this in their own building to their teachers. We just felt like that was really important, that they are there doing the work. We're also going to send a teacher from each school to the 4-day training this summer with the secondary staff so that we have that alignment. 2019-20 is phase 2. This is when we're going to be training out the actual curriculum and materials. We always want to start with the why, and then we'll dig into the materials, whatever curriculum is pushed forward. That's what we're going to work on. We're going to take advantage of the week 3 PD opportunities to work on integration. If teachers want to take the health content and integrate it into science, social studies, language arts. As an elementary teacher, we have a lot of different things that we have to teach. And so integration is something that we need to consider as a possibility. So page 61 is the implementation plan, and if you move to page 63, this is the professional development plan, which has the same information, but it goes a little bit deeper. This format we use for ELA and math, so we're trying to transfer this to all content areas. What we want to do is we want to ensure that if we require teachers to do something, that we support them. And so this format shows what we're going to train them in, what the intention is for the teacher, how we're going to do it, and then the materials and resources that are available to them. So that's it.
For the secondary professional development plan, which looks like they're on pages 64, 65 of your report, we want to hit the ground running a little bit faster. At many of our secondary schools, there is a health education class in place. How much time is given can vary, and we'd like to see some changes made in that, but we know we have some foundational pieces there. We are proposing a 2-day training. Either teachers will get to pick either summer dates or early September, in which they will be able to unpack the new standards and targets, become more familiar with the curriculum we are recommending. Mid-October is when we will do more of the specific training around sexual abuse prevention and just the sexual health piece in general. And again, we are really turning to our community partners to help support that training to take place. This is where we want to rely on experts in the field to help give us, again, the best strategies possible. We also will be using early release time to work and collaborate. We're talking as a cadre, perhaps trying to do regional meetings, because right now getting everybody in the district in one place by 1:30 is really challenging at the high school level. So maybe some regional offerings, TOSA support sessions, so that we can do maybe some co-teaching to help support those teachers who maybe are not feeling as confident with some of the newer material that we are recommending. We also will be putting together a comprehensive health education guide to give teachers a foundational piece on how to approach topics that maybe are more sensitive in nature, a question and answer protocol that they can use to help, again, make it so people feel safe and comfortable, or students feel safe and comfortable within the classroom to be able to ask questions. And again, trying to offer this for all teachers who would be teaching health education at the secondary level. That is our goal, is to get everyone involved.
So in your packet, you also found information about the materials recommended by the project team and other details about budget, etc. But we're open for any questions you may have at this time.
Yeah, Susan?
Thank you. So thank you for all your hard work, including Leanne and that. And so my question is a real basic one. I'm just wondering what Aaron's Law is.
Great. Aaron's Law is in Oregon. We have Senate Bill 856. A lot of numbers in my head. Senate Bill 856 requires 4 regular lessons of sexual abuse prevention for all students grades K through 12. And it's based on an Illinois law that was based on a young lady who was abused that went to bat and worked hard in Illinois to make sure that that never happened to other kids after her. And so we are really honored to have that charge, to be creating a system that helps students understand what they need to do to keep themselves safe, what they need to do to create safety for peers, for members of their family, and understand that we have a community that's united to help keep them safe and who those people are and how to navigate that.
Thank you.
Yeah, Tom?
Yeah. Just want to thank everybody for their work on this. So I was reading through the targets. I was very impressed. There were moments where I was smiling, and I could see where the work being done here is going to be really impactful for equity across the district. And thank you guys for that work. That's great. I have one question. Are there any resource materials that deal with intervention techniques for bystanders to prevent sexual assault? And I'm thinking about our secondary students here.
We do. We are proposing the Advocates for Youth curriculum, which 6 through 12, they have lessons that provide, and some of the areas in which that would be addressed is when trying to help kids understand how to create boundaries, knowing what their sexual rights are, consent, communication skills. The SARC program, the Sexual Assault Resource Center, is SARC. Their program for high school health has a very specific lesson on bystander intervention, which basically the goal of that lesson would be, it says, to examine barriers to intervention and reasons why one would intervene in situation and to discuss ways to intervene and build skills into real life situations. Because that has to be a component.
And does that, this is just kind of a question, does that dovetail with any of the work being done, with our colleges? Because I'm wondering too about, how we can educate our students here at the high school level before they go on to college, right, where we see a lot of sexual assault happening. And what's the prevention piece there, right?
So we haven't worked directly with any of the college programs, but SARC is a community program that works with various, not just schools, but other community organizations that they could help us build that. We're also at some of the high schools proposing to move Health 2 to either junior or senior year to help support more of that skill-based work, so that kids they are different. They're junior, senior year versus freshman, sophomore, where having them go through a health class again senior year is so impactful because they suddenly realize, I am going to be on my own. I have to know how to deal with certain situations. And they might have started to encounter more things where they realize we are trying to really truly protect and support them.
Thank you for your work.
Thank you.
I just want to thank you all for your work. Been through several health adoptions, and they can be some of the most controversial adoptions. And as I read through some of the comments, a wide variety of where folks come from. Just a couple questions. As Beaverton starts to dive into the early childhood world, if you had conversations about that, as well as some of our students who go past grade 12 and into transition services in some of our high needs students. And I know that you just pick up the paper and sometimes they are our most vulnerable students sometimes.
Yeah, great question, Don. The early childhood has been part of what we have considered here in this adoption. Although the standards are K-12, what we do know is that the work with our community starts, like we talked about today, the most important teacher are our parents. And so we're looking for ways to make sure, even during this process, to involve community in the process, to outreach. As we think about our pre-Ks, we have a wonderful opportunity as we start inviting parents in earlier to our schools to talk about how to make sure even the basic necessities of what healthy living looks like. So we have certainly had discussions about how we can integrate our learnings with the health adoption into our pre-Ks for next year.
And I just love your idea about purposely and intentionally reaching out to community partners who have done this work before, because I know that for some teachers, they're very uncomfortable about starting to teach new curriculum and just to be able to bring folks to the table that gives them the confidence and modeling to get to be able to do that. So great job.
And I'll just mention something. So I think when we talk about community, the thing that tends to get people a little uncomfortable is the idea around sexual health and it might be gender identity. But we remember within this there are targets and standards on injury prevention, on healthy eating, on child protection, drug prevention, mental, social, and emotional health. So all of those things, in addition to every standard in here, is applicable for any parent and any student here in our community.
Yeah, Becky, and then Mia.
My question piggybacks what Don just said at the end, was just being a little bit pragmatic here. When you talked about professional development on 19 and 20, I know our health curriculum is not like when we adopt an ELA or math, but I also know we're coming up to some tough budget times. And it seems like one of the first things to go are professional development, and we cannot set up our teachers to be successful when we adopt something and then do not give them the resources and the training to implement that. So have we thought about if for some reason, and then also the question, I so believe in community partnerships and collaborations. I think it's such a valuable part of our district. Do any of these have a fee involved with, do we sign contracts with them to provide us those services? And again, would that be part of the budgetary process?
Sorry, we were negotiating for who could do which parts. It's very important for us that we give every amount of PD we can while we have resources that are adequate. And so that's why on the secondary side, we are being aggressive in investing 4 days of professional development for every health educator. We are trying to balance our desire to do the same thing at elementary with the realization that we are shifting practices in mathematics and English language arts. And if we went with that same velocity at elementary, we feel that it would actually be counterproductive. Instead, we must find ways for teachers to see that health education is woven into the work that's being done with workshop and mathematics. It's being woven into the workshop work in English language arts. And so we need to be much more strategic. We also know that our early release provides an opportunity for collaboration, and that some of our strongest teachers, some of our cadre members, will provide resources that we can leverage regardless of financial resources in the coming years.
So in terms of, is there a fee attached to some of the trainings? These are companies that need to maintain funding. SARC has a flat fee rate that they would charge, but it would also give us all the materials. They would continue to provide ongoing support and curriculum development, because we're asking for support from them on developing more lessons around Aaron's Law for the high school level where a student may not be in a health class. Same with CARES Northwest. They're kind of doing a very similar approach. They both have grants right now that they can help to reduce our costs and are very willing to work with our needs. But yes, there's
I'll put it this way, at the elementary level, we quit buying resources for teachers a while ago and they quit. I mean, there's a value statement for that. So the quality of instruction around health, it can be linked to the support people receive. And so we certainly have a plan for not knowing the future, but certainly have a plan to try to weather the upcoming future, which we know, which can be, which will have some budget chasms.
As you can see, I had the privilege to be a part of an amazing group of people. Ken and Jared did a fabulous job of helping us work through this, and our committee, as you know, was made up of a lot of teachers, administrators, community members, parents. We had some amazing students. You heard from one of them today. And all of them together really want our students to be healthy, and that's clearly come across, not just physically, but emotionally, mentally, in every way, and to have lifelong skills. So the curriculum that they've chosen, it was not easy. We, as you can see, some of it's a little bit here and there because nobody writes curriculum that covers all our standards and the new laws. So they've done a masterful job of digging in and finding the best for Beaverton. And I just wanted to say it was just such a privilege to be a part of this great group, and they're coming with their very best work to recommend to us. So thank you.
Okay, so I just want to make sure I understand kind of so I could see that we were picking and choosing curriculum, or at least I thought that I got that. What I couldn't picture was if I was a teacher in an elementary classroom or in a high school classroom, how does that all come to me? How do I find out what the recommended way to teach certain pieces? Like I went to the 3-hour training, but do I show up and get it? What does this actually look like if I'm a classroom teacher? And if you could put the when in, because it sounded like there were different whens too, different years. I just want to make sure I really understood it.
At the secondary level, they will be provided with the new standards, targets, and curriculum. They have a choice. If they would like to do the training in the summer, we're going to offer dates then, but realizing we can't require that. So then we'll have it early September for those who couldn't do a summer date. The curriculum we're proposing, the foundational pieces, the McGraw-Hill materials, all digital. So that will be at their fingertips, and part of the training will be learning how to use the digital platform that they provide. Most of the curriculum that we have is online, some of which free, download, very easy to use. I see us hopefully being able to, again, I want to make connections with like key point people at each of the secondary schools so that they know and I know what their needs are, what support they may need, so that I can continue to support their work next year as the rollout begins. They are going, so that if they have some confusion about which curriculum, which targets, they have a point person to come to. And that's part of what the early release too, we could work on those components. But most of what they're going to be able to get will be all online.
And I can talk a little bit about the elementary. So next year, we're going to train out on Aaron's Law. So it's 4 lessons per grade level per year on sexual abuse prevention. We do have a free online program we're pushing forward, trying to push forward. It's called fightchildabuse.org. It's very easy for the teachers to see and work from. There's lessons, there's videos, and what's great about that is you can also share with the parents prior and say, this is what we're doing in the classroom. Because a lot of the language for elementary of the standards, it's adult language. So some parents may be uncomfortable with it, but when they see what it looks like, that's what, it's much more, it's much different. It's much more appropriate. So we're going to train that out. We'll train those materials out. We're going to train the comprehensive health education guide, which has an answer protocol for sensitive questions. The materials, the comprehensive curriculum for health, we aren't going to train that out until the next year, even though the teachers will probably get that this coming year. I will offer some week 3 opportunities if teachers are ready to dig into that. I just think it's too much too soon. We need kind of a slow rollout. Elementary teachers have a lot going on. There's writing training going on. Math is fairly new. We've got science next year, so it's kind of a slow rollout. The good thing is the curriculum that we propose is the old curriculum, is from the same publishing company. So the format is similar. It's updated materials. Teachers are comfortable with it, and it's familiar to them. So that's how that's going to look. Did that answer your question?
I think I got it. Does everybody else have questions? All right. Thank you very much for all your work and for sticking it out with us tonight. We appreciate that.
Thank you.
All right, next on our agenda is time for a follow-up board discussion. At our work session a few weeks ago, board members had the opportunity to receive some training from a member of an ODE, Markeisha and Smith, who helped us work through some materials and a good discussion. And I knew that board members were taking that opportunity to reflect and appreciated the opportunity that we had there. I got a lot of positive feedback there, but also I think it was a little unclear. So what next? There was a strong feeling that we didn't want it to hit the floor and to not understand where we were heading next. You'll notice in the packet I did not include all of the materials that we went through at the work session, but just a couple of highlights of things that she had brought, that things that were being used currently at the State Board of Education to guide board work. And part of the reason why we had invited, I guess I got another question, which was, why now? And why did we have her come? And really it was just that I saw her presentation and I thought Beaverton School Board could use this back in November, and it takes a long time to get time on our work session, and so it happened to be in April. And so I just wanted to be able to open the floor up to board members to see sort of where they were feeling in terms of, were there things that you saw or heard that you thought, I definitely want to move forward on that, or things that we want to push off to a subcommittee. I needed to be able to have people have time to have reflected and bring back their ideas and thinking. So, Donna, we missed you at our work session.
Yes, I'm sorry I wasn't there, so I'm not sure whether I got everything, but I think we need to have a committee work on this, frankly.
Yeah, Leah.
I thought it was amazing work and amazing information. I would love to have some sort of format that when we do have presentations or changes brought before us, that we do have some sort of an equity lens. Most of what was given to us is so much that I don't know we can go through all of that with everything that we do, or we'll never get through our board meetings. But even her pocket page, pocket version was great, but I even think it needs to be condensed more for the Beaverton ideas. So I too agree with Donna. I think maybe to assign to a subcommittee that this is their burning passion, and they could maybe come through with some sort of updated collaboration of all of these materials in maybe 2, 3, 4 questions that we ask would be more than enough, and that everybody that's going to present to us would know that we're going to be looking through those lenses.
Okay, so I'm just gonna, so you would be interested in seeing some version of the decision tool as well as a standardized format for our situation sheets that includes things like what are on the state boards, questions about stakeholder voice and how this will impact different student groups and things like that.
Yes.
And it seems like it would be reasonable to have a subcommittee work on that.
Yes.
Okay. Susan, did you have something to say?
No, I just totally agree with that.
Yeah, Tom?
I'm also in favor of doing that work with the subcommittee. I'm thinking here too, especially in regards to the items that you put in the board agenda here. I'm thinking about kind of something that we would do at the state level, right, when we were looking at a bill or like a policy change that we'd be doing here is you would get a report from like the legislative revenue or financial office, right? And that report would tell you what the fiscal impact of that bill is. I'm wondering how could we develop something like that for our policy work, for our budget work, and how do we do that in a way that really encompasses all the different roles that we have as a board, while at the same time making sure that it doesn't just become another box that's checked, but it's something that people can really lean into and use effectively. So I guess that all that being said, to me that seems like something I would like to see that subcommittee work on and come back with would be some sort of a document that we could have attached when we're receiving reports as a board, so that as we're reviewing the material, we're not just having our own thoughts on the equity lens, but we're getting those from staff as well.
Okay. In addition to what we've already talked about, Tom, it seems like you're interested in perhaps customizing, similar to what ODE is actually already using, the situation sheets to include different kinds of information depending on what the thing is. So that might, we do have financial impact for short-term things, but not for things like policies or things like that coming through right now. Okay.
Right, and how does it look different for policy?
Yeah.
And how does it look different for the budget, right? Those are the two main, but I'm sure there's other areas.
Yeah, okay. Did you have something to add? Sure.
Just the one thing I would ask is when the committees form to really try to work with show and teaching and learning, so there's some stuff that we're doing right now, so not completely reinventing the wheel. So there's those things that are taking place right now too, and they're doing some great work in these areas. So that would, as the committee, is to really lean on our staff too, and to let us bring resources that are already taking place.
Yeah, the good news, bad news with board subcommittees is they take a lot of staff work. So we fully expect that. Okay, is there anything else? That's some really helpful discussion to help us move forward. We'll report back. Thank you very much. All right. Speaking of subcommittees that take staff work, we have a first reading today of a lot of policies.
You're flying solo.
Amelia's coming. She's been waiting. She's been waiting.
We're so quiet back there. I'm working. I have a lot of stuff to carry. So long.
board members were very considerate in sending policies that they wanted to have us take a look at. I'm just going to go through the list I gathered from people alphabetically, just to make it easier on those of us shuffling through. It in no way prioritizes questions or, and if I don't have yours and you want to talk about it, please just mention it. But the first one I have is about IGDK, everyone's favorite, about non-school sponsored study and athletic tours. Eric, do you want to just share what your question was?
Well, I think actually, I talked to David a little bit earlier. There's this kind of a little ambiguity on this one to start, because I wasn't sure if it was about marketing materials, but I think you kind of maybe clarified as mostly like when a team goes for a tour or an event somewhere else, so it's not really any clarification.
Yeah, thanks. This policy is a funny one, and it does have what seems like a rather cumbersome title, but this is really more about a liability shield for the district, clarifying that if you are on a non-school sponsored trip, field trip, competition, etc., even though it may be an extension of something you're already doing at school, but it is a explicitly non-school sponsored activity that we take no responsibility for that event.
Even though it could be someone on staff that is accompanying you, they are doing that totally, it's a total separate entity. In the case in point, it used to be Washington DC trips or a trip to Germany that is, part of your German, but they're not doing it in the name as a teacher of BSD. It's a totally separate entity in itself.
Yeah, the example you often see is in your language courses where teachers will work with a tour company, and there are certain guidelines about how they can recruit kids, etc. But they will be the paid chaperone for that event as a private citizen operating in a private capacity. Students are attending it as a non-school sponsored activity, and we just have to sort of draw a really clear line for folks that is a non-school sponsored activity. We don't take liability for that.
I feel better. I don't have any further questions on that. No changes.
All right. Then the next one I know about is a JCA, and actually that raised concerns for two people. The first is, I believe that it was an editing mistake that we left the laundry list of bullets 1 through 6, and when after our policy discussion it was meant to go away, right?
It's actually, it's funny, if you look at the online, the strike through on the precursor to the laundry list, it appears to be an underline. It's sort of shifted down, but it is a strike through. And the strike through on the laundry list is actually really faint if you look closely. So we have edited that and reloaded into Board Book a very clear version, essentially striking everything. The laundry list and the precursor paragraph is all stricken.
Okay. And then the other question was about, I think it's yours, Leanne. I won't say
it is. I wondered if the committee talked about requiring gathering of information from affected community areas in said places that are being talked about moving around from one district to another.
I don't know if Becky wants to speak to this. I don't know that we did. Go ahead.
The language is really around the boards and the districts having conversations, and not that agreeing to a process and criteria for what that would happen, rather than dictating that we would visit X people or send out polling or anything like that about people who would be impacted. So it's definitely a change that could be introduced, but it was not something that I think just as boards, it was sort of just implied, that we wouldn't do things. But if we felt like it was needed to call it out specifically, I think we could consider that. I'm thinking out loud. We'd be requiring another school board to do that, which would be my only other.
I would be requiring our school board to do that. I don't care if the other school board did, but I think it's absolutely important. So whether it's written in policy here or in an AR, I just want to make sure that future school boards don't just make that decision and place it upon our citizens without getting their input.
I do think the policy requires, before a process were to commence, that much like an internal review, a process and objectives would be brought to the board for review. So to the degree to which you don't want to bind future board bodies, your future legislative body, from action, that this essentially gives them the authority to define that process at the time, would be the way to say that.
I think we had, if I recall, we had lots of discussions. Who starts this discussion? Who? So can a group of people decide that they want to be in a different area, or is it once that discussion is had, do they need to be, do they need to be conferred with? But where does the discussion start? I don't think any of us disagree that the people that are most affected they would be engaged. But do they start the discussion? Or is it we, the board, or the body that starts the discussion? Because these are our policies.
I'm not sure I can answer the question of who starts it. It has been started upon us in the past.
Right.
And it actually came from a citizen. It did not come from us, although we were highly encouraged by other elected bodies.
So Leanne, I'm wondering if, I guess what I would like you to think about, and I'm not sure if you even, or how other board members feel about it, our internal boundary policies include language like open and transparent, and I'm not sure if maybe just a similar statement would apply here, or if the board would feel like, I have a hard time imagining that future boards would be really bent out of shape if we imposed that on them, if they wanted to remain board members, which maybe they retired and didn't.
Wouldn't care.
Anyway, I think that's language that we already use. That's not bad if that's the intent that we're trying to clarify. So.
And that would be fine.
We can find that.
But we did discuss it a lot.
This policy.
Yes, we do. I'm just writing down my notes, sorry.
Okay, the next one is JEA.
So the question that we saw with JEA was with respect to item number 9 on the second page, and there was a question about the language and the comma that is in the second line there. That language is taken directly from statute, so it's verbatim from an ORS 339-0302. That comma, however, is not in the statute, so that might be just an error on the part of OSBA. So we can I read this sentence several times and also read it in the statute. I don't know that the comma changes the meaning materially. It doesn't really, but if the board would like us to remove the comma so that it is verbatim to the statute, then that would be easy to do.
I think it gives the sense that you don't need both, and the statute is about both being lawfully employed, full or part-time, and being enrolled in that program. And I'm thinking not just legally, but also, when the layperson reads this, right, we want to be conveying the meaning as clearly as possible.
Well, to be clear, it is an or. So it is lawfully employed full-time.
Okay.
Or being employed part-time and. So the and applies to the part-time employment. So that's why the comma kind of makes sense to me as I read it, but in the statute the comma's not there. So
I withdraw. If that's the intent, then please keep the comma.
Keep the comma. Okay.
Okay, we're on JEDA.
This is mine. And I just was raising the issue that the second paragraph says the district believes. And I had thought that we were taking belief statements out of policy, but I wondered if there was a discussion of why it was being kept in policy.
The way I just read that, it's just a turn of a phrase at the beginning of it. I think you could take out with these beliefs in mind and start the sentence with the district will develop procedures, and then it's not a belief statement. So it's really not a belief statement, which is probably why we didn't necessarily.
Talking about the second, it just keeps getting
It
worse.
says the district believes irregular attendance is one of the factors associated with
The
students.
third one, and the third,
That's easy.
And then
the third paragraph has it with these beliefs in
Yeah.
mind.
So, I mean, I'm not anti-belief statements, but it seemed like we were trying to, clean our policy up. And if that's the goal, then I would recommend, and I have to say, I only found one other belief, but I didn't recognize it, so I didn't go back and look for the word belief. And I don't know if I caught them all, I just caught one other one. But if we're gonna be consistent, I think we ought to take it out, unless you guys think it makes sense to keep it in. And I will leave that to the committee's decision. I just wanted to raise the issue.
Thank you for paying attention.
Yes, we put that in on purpose to see if you guys
I know, and I caught it.
I think it's fine to put the beginning of paragraph 2 that to say because irregular attendance, and then the third one, the district, instead of with these beliefs in mind. Because regular attendance is one of the, comma, a fundamental purpose for insisting, I don't know, fix it.
We don't believe anything.
Wow. She's getting rummy. We're in trouble.
All right, yeah, just write that down.
Fix it on there.
All right, JGD.
The question was around whether or not an explanation of due process is contained anywhere else. It is. It's in our Student Family Resource Handbook, and that goes into it in some level of detail. The amount of due process that a student might receive with respect to discipline kind of varies depending on the deprivation of the right. So without getting too legalistic, on a suspension, you're not depriving them of as great a right, so the level of due process legally is lower versus an expulsion. And so to put something in policy that could fluctuate and change based on case law, 'cause that's really what establishes what our obligations are, probably wouldn't be the committee's recommendation.
I just have a question. Is it still in the disciplinary handbook that there's supposed to be something offered to a parent that actually explains what the due process is? It's been in the handbook for a long time. And when I've asked what that is, that they would provide to a parent if they ask for it, no one can give me a straight answer. So the question is it's still in there? If it's still in there, what can we provide? Because I think that goes to the heart of the issue here.
Donna, honestly, I don't know if it's still in the handbook, but we do have a meeting this week, I believe on Wednesday, actually for our annual review of the handbook. So at that point in time, I will take a look at that language. And if it is still in there, then we should discuss, we meet as a handbook committee and we'll discuss whether or not, what do we provide. I'm not, I don't know the answer to that right here. And if we're not providing something, whether or not we should or we need to remove the language.
Yeah, that's kind of what, because then it gets to where you can find it. Because I know we only have that information in our board guidelines as to what that sort of means. I think it would be nice for the public to have that information as well, somewhere. So whether it's provided as part of the disciplinary handbook request, because it's in there, or some policy, I think it's important to have it somewhere.
You know that it is loosely outlined in the Student Resource Handbook what due process means. And so that reference may be to that, the fact that every student gets access to the handbook annually. But we can look at that as part of our committee meeting this week.
Okay, got JGDA.
Yes.
Was this one of yours, Tom, JGDA? Wonder if you could help me with your question a little bit, a little clarification there.
Yeah, so it was a question about what does the quote, "a change in the student's educational placement" mean in the context of this policy? So I kept seeing that and I kept thinking, is that like a term of art? Is there something?
Yes, it is. So this policy deals with students with disabilities, and a student with a disability has a educational placement as part of their IEP. And what this policy is discussing is that as a result of a disciplinary action, the result of a disciplinary action may cause a change of placement. If that is the case, an IEP team must be convened to determine if it's the appropriate placement. So specifically in a couple of areas, it's noting that if a student is removed from their placement for 10 consecutive days or 10 cumulative days that establish a pattern, that is, for the purposes of the IEP, a change of placement, and therefore you would have to reconvene the team to determine appropriate placement.
Thanks, that helps.
Yeah.
And then there was a question about JH.
So this is the student welfare policy, and the proposal from the committee was to delete it. I would put it in context. We noted that there were a variety of sort of student safety, student welfare policies. I think there were about 4 of them smattered throughout. We did keep one that I believe is called just student safety elsewhere in policy. The question specifically was about the requirement to inspect the physical condition of our buildings, and Tom, thank you for raising it. We did have a chance to talk about it. This would fall under those instances of the obligations that the district undertakes that are not necessarily in policy, like the obligation to inspect our bus fleet to make sure it's a proper functioning order, to inspect our football field bleachers to make sure they don't collapse, these kinds of things, to have a proper, effective, functioning physical plan for the district. And then the rest of that would be triggered through maintenance plans and things that would fall under your budget purview. We also talked about the district does also have a district safety committee that promulgates some of those best practice approaches to ensure that we are sort of putting our kids in the best, safest environment possible. Yeah.
Okay, the next one I have is on JO. Question about imposing restrictions or penalties until fees, fines, or damages are paid.
Sure. Yeah, the answer is no, we can't withhold student records, and that's not what that language is meant to imply. It's taken directly from statute on that, so it isn't meant to include student records.
Does it include things like you can't get your school schedule ahead of school unless you have your fines paid or something like that, which is a common practice?
By the language in the statute, you could probably, I wouldn't recommend doing that, but by the language in the statute, you possibly could withhold.
Or transcripts, if you.
Transcripts is off the table. You
Okay.
you cannot withhold a transcript based on fines or penalties. And you could say that possibly that you couldn't attend a social event if your fines were not paid. You might have, we kind of talked about some of the other low-lying.
Yeah, I mean, it's other school-sponsored activities you could be restricted from participating in if you have outstanding fines and fees.
Yeah.
And you also could be sent to collections for outstanding fines and fees, with the exception of school lunch balance.
Just a thought here. If records aren't the thing that's going to be withheld, maybe a suggestion to pull this out and make it its own policy, because the fact that it lives in the education records policy is a little counterintuitive. But I leave that to the committee. That's just a suggestion.
Thanks.
My only add is my hunch is that a good portion of that is lifted from FERPA statutes as well, so there's probably a lot of interplay there. We can certainly take a look, but I suspect it would remain.
And then JOA.
Yeah, thank you. So the last one here, JOA, The issue was raised on the second page, I believe, under exclusion. There's a very funky sentence about student opt-out and student IDs. Frankly, we were a bit flummoxed by it as well, so thank you for raising it. We've been in contact with OSBA, and I think we're going to look to bring some modified language. The intent there is to say students have the ability, they do have the ability to opt out of allowing us to give their directory information to third parties, okay? What the language is attempting there, referring to federal statutes, is students do not have the ability to opt out of giving us their name, or us requiring them to have a student ID card and present that ID card on request. So that we want to clarify that language, but that is essentially what that's saying, is you can opt out of distribution to third party, but for the purposes, because we often will farm out the student ID card production to a third party, so we still control the use of the data, but you can't say, no, you can't produce me a student ID card, essentially.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, my concern there was...
Fully drafted.
Yeah.
Not drafted well.
Okay.
Donna?
I just have a question. This is the first time we've had a significant number of on hold policies. So that's what I saw in the draft I got in the mail was on hold. I was looking at the ones that I physically got in the mail, and I was wondering what was happening with those. It said on hold on them.
We have a last section of policies coming back, winding their way through the policy committee and getting updated with OSBA.
Okay,
And
language from OSBA.
Yeah,
That's
just
what's going on.
yeah. Look for them soon.
All right, I just wanted to know.
This is going to be done before the end of June.
Yeah, Leanne.
I have one more that I apologize I didn't ask before. It's pretty simple. I know. Throw your pen down on the table. It's JHC and it's another belief. Second sentence, you can look at it and decide on your own if you want to take out something about, because it's a belief statement about programs that help keep good health.
That's fine.
Anyway, that's it.
And I actually have one other ad that it came to my attention.
Just teasing.
I know, look, I brought something. In JOB, the fourth item on the first page, it identifies, it spells out personal identifiers such as the student's social security number, and it says or state ID number, or student ID number. We want to add the word state in front of that, because we do use student ID numbers for a variety of state. Yes. Sorry, didn't do that again. It's late.
Okay,
So we're
it's
adding
gonna be
the word
state student ID number or just state ID numbers?
State student ID number.
Okay.
That's the only
Are
change.
there any
to
questions
that.
about that? I didn't have anything to do with this one. All right. Thank you. We will have a few more policies back for first reading at our next meeting. It will not be as large of a stack, so it will not be coming very far ahead, and we'll get it to as soon as we can, but it won't be something scary. Although you can imagine that some of them are just our favorite hot topics, so they will require your time and thought to. All right, thank you so much for your attention this evening. Last on our agenda, we have just one set of action items, our consent agenda.
I move that we approve the consent agenda.
I second.
Susan seconded. Is there any further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much. Board members, did you have additional comments for us tonight yet, Donna?
I just wanted to say I'm sparing you till next month.
That sounds like a promise. All right, we could take it as an informational item. I will just always put that out.
I'm going to get for the record. I'll just go next month.
All right, Leanne and Susan.
I was just going to inform the board that I'm working very hard on revenue reform. And Becky was with us at the OSBA Legislative Policy Committee all weekend, where I gave a report and update. But we're not only through OSBA, but sitting on several state committees that are, one with the business community, one with the governor. There's just some different groups. There's stirring of waters, is what I will say. And I'm believing that we are going to make a difference, so I'm cautiously hopeful.
So I just wanted to, this is really quick, but that we should be hearing from the English language ELD groups next month with their curriculum update.
Thank you for working with that project,
Yeah.
Susan. Yeah, Becky, you have anything to say?
I too will. It's been a very active month and seen a lot of great things, Earth Days and auctions. But I want to say in the last month that I have had the opportunity to speak to a lot of our PTOs. And I know a lot of us have, but I've spoken to a lot of PTOs. And how impressed we should be with how hard they work, how organized they are, how dedicated they are, and how fortunate we are to have such strong PTOs in our district. And that to parallel on top of May 15th, we have a very important job here. And between now and May 15th, we need to tell everyone that lives in the Beaverton School District how important it is that they get out and vote. And that we need 300 teachers in front of our children, and we are the messengers of that, and we need to tell everyone we know. We've got 2 weeks to go, folks, and I'm counting on this board to help all of our teachers, so please, please, please. Our PTOs are doing their job. We've got canvassing going on. We've got phone banks in the last 2 weeks. We've still got money to bring in the door, so we're not quite done. But I know at our next board meeting, we are going to be talking about how proud we are of the Beaverton district voters and that they support our schools. So let's just finish this up, please.
Yeah, Leah.
I have a quick question for you, Becky. Where are we gathering on May 15th?
Okay. Can I take questions? We are gathering at the Golden Valley Brewery at 7 o'clock.
Okay.
And we'll have refreshments and food and computers. And at 8:01, we'll know exactly where we are. So
Thank you.
something will be going out to everybody to remind, but Golden Valley Brewery.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Good job.
Yeah, Tom?
I just wanted to comment that we had a great meeting today with Congresswoman Bonamici. We got to tour ACMA and had a wonderful conversation about a well-rounded education, the importance of that in arts education. And just take the opportunity too to talk about the informational item we have in our board packets, where we're looking at the correlation between graduation rates for our secondary students in band and choir. I think this is amazing here, and I hope that we can continue the work of reducing barriers so more students can get this benefit, especially our underserved students, and especially our students from low income. You know, whatever those barriers be, fees, scheduling, whatever, that we keep that work up, I think is so important.
Okay, I fielded questions from board members about the ARs, so I wanted to give a shout out to our staff for starting to get those in line with our policies. Expect to see more of those, but I know that this was the first time where we saw a big chunk come through as information items. Part of updating policies is the process of going through and making sure that the ARs are compliant as well, and so that's what you saw there. So thank you so much for all of those who are putting times in there. And thank the team, especially Becky, for the work that she's putting in on the local option.
Right.
I've never seen anybody work harder other than people in the past who have worked for local option levies. So thank you very much, everybody, for putting your oar in the water and getting this done. And